Hey, and good morning. Go ahead, get settled.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wow. Hello. Good morning.
Everybody ready to do some radio? I know.
Yeah.
I know we started 30 seconds earlier, but
Yeah.
we're used to
Gee,
starting
that
like
was
6
not-
minutes late.
Yeah.
No, that was good. I was good. I don't. If I'm too loud, that's fine. We're just gonna vamp for a second so she can set our levels. But good Monday morning to you, Bob.
Good morning to you, Chuck.
Good morning, Leneth. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay, we're all sounding fantastic. So
Yes. Hold on.
it is
All right.
Monday. It is the we are now. We crossed over the autumnal equinox? So
We did.
Officially, I was just saying we got to update our graphics. There's no longer summer of Chuck. It is now the fall of Chuck too.
We'll get something nice up there soon for next week.
Good holiday eve to you all. Good holiday eve to you, Bob. Do you know what this is? This is my favorite holiday.
What?
I'm going to give you a hint though. It's my favorite holiday, and it happens roughly every 2 years. I think is when it happens. So it's happened 8 times that I've been on the radio, I believe. So this is the eve of my favorite holiday. And I'll let you think about that.
Okay, I'll think about that.
While we do traffic and weather. So let's hit traffic. It is 6 o'clock in the region. You're listening to AM 1230 and 104.7 FM in beautiful Hammond, Indiana. Here on the Indiana side, traffic is flowing smooth in all directions. 8094, 65. Don't see anything going on. No truck fires down on 65 as of yet this morning. Your commute into the city is looking good. Just a little pinch of a slowdown. Bishop Ford, Dan Ryan. 294 looking good. Everything's looking good across the board. So we're starting with a clean slate this morning. All roads moving smoothly. And you know the number, 219-845-1100. If you see something we need to tell people about. Let's take a look at the weather with Leneth.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 58 degrees with highs of 86 and lows of 61. Should be very warm with sunshine and above historical average warmth expected this week. Tonight should be pretty clear. And then tomorrow on Tuesday we'll be having highs of 80 and lows of 58 and should be remaining warm with abundant sunshine. And then Wednesday we'll be having highs of 75 and lows of 53, and we'll be having sun through high clouds.
Fantastic. Thank you. Bob, did you figure out what my favorite holiday is yet?
I have not a clue. I have been Googling for the last minute and a half, and I have no clue what's coming up.
It is Government Shutdown Eve.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. The only thing that's more exciting is every couple of years it's the most important election of your lifetime. But Government Shutdown Eve, I mean...
Well, the most important election ultimately leads to Government Shutdown Eve. So we'll hit that in a little bit. I think we should go straight to the more serious news of the morning. Let's go to Michigan. There was a tragic story that's coming out of Michigan from yesterday. 4 people are dead from a LDS church in Grand Blanc, Michigan. Is it Blanc or Blanc? I'm going with Blanc.
Blanc.
Grand Blanc, Michigan. Reports are that a 40-year-old Iraq War veteran, a Marine, is identified as the shooter. Essentially, he crashed his pickup truck into the front doors, opened fire, started a fire. There's varying reports. I'm seeing anywhere between 2 to 4 confirmed dead, 10 shot. Just a horribly sad situation. I don't know what to make of this. It's sad that the first things I saw about this on the internet were basically people trying to blame the other side.
Yeah.
It was, is he a Trump supporter? Is he MAGA? Is he Antifa? Is he trans? There was a little bit of a self-own where it was, well, he had American flags on his pickup truck, ergo he must be MAGA. So it's sad that that's where everybody goes. It's sad that people were in a sense gloating when they found out that he potentially leans right strictly because he had American flags on a pickup truck. So I know that there's a lot of people that are trying to figure out what his motives were. I know that the local officials, ATF, people like that, were getting into his home with robots. There were IEDs in the truck, so they assume there's probably IEDs in the home as well. 2 officers engaged in gunfire with the suspect, neutralizing the suspect. So started about 8 minutes after the shooting. But another sad story involving a church, involving religion. I mean, again, it's too early to speculate, but this is something that it has been feeling to me lately that there is sort of this, and again, it's nothing new, this sort of attack on churches, on religion, on Christian people, basically this idea that there is sort of this attack on godly people. And it's one of those things where I wonder why it is that churches are being targeted, that children and schools are being targeted, and I just don't know what to make of it at this point, Bob.
There is you bring up the schools and in the news this week in churches. If you go into one of CNN's articles, they kind of list out all the different churches that we've all heard about.
And it's not unique.
Now.
I mean, it's been all types of churches, synagogues. Yes. I mean, there's been attacks across the board for a long time on different types of churches.
And so what makes, you want to ask if you're a parishioner of one of these places, you want to think, well, what makes a person choose this place, and how do we, harden the building or stop that? But then you're also dealing with folks. I mean, clearly you're not right if you're running your truck into a building, shooting people up, setting the building on fire, and almost looking for some type of suicide by cop.
Right.
I don't know how you defend against crazy.
Well, and that's an important point that I don't think we talk enough about. As I've always said, is that whether it's a school shooting or a church or wherever, it always seems like, you're right, it's like a suicide by cop situation, because chances are you're not going to come home from that.
Yeah, you're not making out of that.
And so that becomes the question, is the motivation when you're talking about a school or a church shooting, is the motivation, sometimes it appears that the motivation is to shoot up the school, but also it seems like the motivation is, I have nothing to live for. In this case,
go out in a blaze of glory type thing. That
there's people that are saying, besides being an Iraq war vet, he had a sick child that he had written about in the newspaper or to the newspaper. So again, I think you may be onto something, but it'll be curious to see why he chose that particular church. I know he didn't live anywhere near that church, so it was a little bit of a drive. So I don't know if he had any connection to them. And that's one of the other interesting things, is one of the immediate results, the aftermath is, let's try to find a justification. Let's try to find, they said they want to get to the house and see if there's a manifesto or anything like that. Like, I think, again, we're trying to explain something that in a lot of cases can't be explained. I remember that was a big, for the 30 seconds we talked about the shooting in Las Vegas, there was this whole discussion about, well, nobody ever figured out his motivation, and then it kind of just went away. But that tends to be the situation, is that we're looking for a reason. We're looking for some sort of explanation, and there isn't one.
I think people do that with all sorts of tragedies. Is, well, there has to be some bigger meaning out there than just a lone crazy guy in a truck, because perhaps there's a meaning or a reason out there that, while wouldn't have made it worth it, for lack of better words, but worth some understanding. Right. But sometimes, crazy is crazy, and I think, obviously we always want to look, turn over every rock to see if there is a reason, but occasionally, sometimes the answer is, we just simply live in a broken world, and
broken people do broken things. I mean, we have a call. You want to take a call? Let's go ahead and take our first caller of the morning and of the week. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Well, if anybody out there owns a BMW, I was watching Channel 9 News out of Chicago this morning, and they said that if you have a BMW, don't park it in your garage because the thing can burst into flames. Apparently, it's a problem with the ignition system. How about that?
So this is
opener.
200,000 BMWs. This is for model years 2019 to 2022. Owner should park outside. It says the engine starter relay may corrode, leading to overheating and short-circuiting, increasing the risk of a fire. So this is just multiple 2019 to 2022 vehicles. So if you own a BMW, check in on that, which is surprising, Walt, because of the vehicles that we hear recalls about, we rarely hear about BMW recalls. They generally make a pretty good product, and you're not recalling all of them because of some cheater computer chip to mess with the ignition or the exhaust, or there's a bad airbag or something like that. So it's surprising to hear a BMW recall. Go ahead.
The Germans, what they call it is bit and ve. Bit and ve. That's how the Germans. We say BMW, they say bit and ve.
Or BMV, right? Is that the technically the what it should be is BMV? But well, I wanted to ask you about this. So we're hearing that we've had National Guard on the ground in Chicago, as well as we're hearing about Portland. Some videos came out over the weekend. The National Guard was essentially downtown near Millennium Park. They were, I mean, generally just dozens of agents sort of walking around the downtown area. They stopped a couple of people, like a family, but for the most part, they were just sort of on patrol. What are your thoughts?
Well, Chicago's got a lot of crime, and the Democrats want us to forget what went on in Portland. In 2020, you had the left-wing elements carving out sections of the city, saying this is our territory, and they went after the federal court building there. And
didn't they burn? They burned the court, didn't they? They burned that building or set that on fire.
They tried to. And then the president sent in federal agents to protect it, and the Antifa, the left-wing terrorist organization, now declared by President Trump, they damaged the eyes of the federal agents with lasers type thing. So you would think, from listening to the governor of Oregon say everything is hunky-dory, they want us to forget that history.
Well, what's interesting, too, is when you see, like, for instance, J.B. Pritzker, I think, is going to have a press conference later today. It's hard to say everything's fine when 50 people are shot. You show up on Monday morning and say everything is fine, even though 50 people were shot in Chicago that weekend. So, in that regard, if you're going to just ignore that, and unfortunately in Chicago we have ignored that for far too long, if you're just going to ignore that fact that dozens of people get shot every weekend, then yeah, things are going just fine. But this also becomes an interesting situation because you have, and I just continue to point out that J.B. Pritzker is at this point probably the forerunner for the Democrats' nominee for president, including Gavin Newsom. So it's interesting that you have these two guys are sort of campaigning. Because this is one of the unfortunate parts about politics. If J.B. Pritzker were to cave right now and say, you know what, I will accept the help from the federal government, it essentially negates his chances of being the Democratic candidate for president. Would you agree?
Probably, but the electorate can be pretty curious. I function as a precinct captain for many years in Illinois and somewhat in Indiana. And the little story, when I stood on, I remember once I was standing at the polling place, and I never pushed anything in anybody's hands. I simply said, it's election day, come out to vote kind of thing. And this guy dressed in a three-piece suit and a suitcase and the whole 9 yards says to me, I'll vote. It was right close to a commuter station, and he said, "I'll vote tonight when I come home." So here he comes late in the afternoon, and the same guy. And I said to him, "Come out to vote. It's elections." And he said, "I voted this morning." He didn't realize I recognized it, but that's kind of the electorate. I mean. Even in the hottest elections, at the national level, you get maybe 55% of eligible voters to come out to vote.
Yeah, if that. So I want to hit one other thing, Walt. We're going to be talking about this in a little bit, but we are on the verge of yet another government shutdown. I know you as a longtime listener, you and I have talked about this several times in the past when we talked about the government shutdowns. Again, largely ceremonial. It's mainly just like a show. We don't really, I think it ends up costing us money in the long run. So what are your thoughts? Yet another government shutdown.
Well, first, the Democrats, what they're fighting for is they want the taxpayer to provide medical care to illegals. That's their cause. That's what they want to close the government down. But they're going to lie and scare people and so forth. Seniors, you're not going to get your check, and veterans are not going to be able to get their services and so forth. But the reality is, Social Security checks will go out. Medicare, no problem there. Veterans health care, no problem there. Postal Service, no problem there. The people, federal employees that won't be affected, the military, of course, FBI investigators, CIA officers, air traffic controllers, and agents maintaining airport checkpoints. So the government's supposed to be closed down, but there's an awful lot of it is still very much open.
Right.
And,
it's hard to shut down something that monolithic.
The parks, though, they'll close the parks. Because,
we'll get into that because that was some of my favorite stories, sad favorite stories from the last government shutdown. I lost track of which one was which, but Walt, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. Yeah. So I remember the last time we were talking about the government shutdown, they put up. Probably my favorite story was they put up barricades around the monuments in Washington. And there was a group of, I want to say it was World War II veterans that came in doing a hero flight. And, they did what they're going to do, which is they basically moved the barricades, jumped over the barricades. And I was like, is this, and again, this isn't like a theme park or something where you need a bunch of people. You basically you have a guy, you have somebody keeping an eye on it. You come by and sweep once in a while, and they shut down the monuments. And our veterans, God bless them, had no part in. They were not having that. Like, we flew all the way here. Yeah. We were going to our monument. But it was funny, like even you'd hear stories about they delayed approving beer bottle labels. I remember flying through Midway Airport when the government was quote unquote shut down. And they basically had us going through like a back employee entrance. There was like rap music playing instead of the usual just piano. It's like this is weirdly like apocalyptic, but also kind of neat. I'm like, and I think I made the joke that like we finally get to sneak our bazooka onto a flight, and they were not in the mood for that. But it was very weird. One of my favorite stories was when government took time away from us. They shut down, so most people all across the world, we get all of our systems are synced up using time servers. The one that most people sync up to, the most accurate, is the NIST server. So our government, in spiteful fashion, took time away from us during the last government. Like, well, we'll show you. We won't turn off time. It's like, well, we'll be fine. So what are your thoughts? I mean, and I say, I have a couple of friends that are in federal government, and I try to not make light because obviously it does affect their families. But I go, look, if you work for a pyramid scheme. I mean, sometimes the checks aren't going to come in. I mean, like you work for this agent. Like you should know by now that you work for your bosses are a little shady if you work for the federal government. Just saying.
Well, and one. I doubt it'll ever shut down. But when it does, it has to be it has to be performative, because if it was truly shut down for a long time, people would realize that they don't need it that much.
And that's always the scary part, right? So they take away the things that have a big show. We're going to take time away from you. We're going to shut down the monuments.
The world is ending, but let's go ahead and contract out 10,000 bike racks to cordon off the dunes. So you can't go there because, if the federal government is shut down, how in the world can you walk a path.
Right. And actually, one of the government shutdowns was right after that sort of handover to the federal government that make it a national park. And I was like, well, this is why you don't give away your resources to a shady organization that can take it away from you. But who am I?
And of course, no shame. They, I don't know, on both sides of the aisle. Come on, guys.
Well, so there, to Walt's point, it sounds like, and again, this is just sort of me perusing, the Republicans are trying to pass a clean CR, continuing resolutions, and the Democrats want to tie that to, what did he say? It was Medicaid for illegal immigrants or something like that.
Whatever they're attempting to
label it. So again, it's
it.
politicking on both sides, which is what we expect. And so we can't pass a budget. We can't, I mean, I think at this point, the idea of even, it used to be like the idea of passing a balanced budget was laughable. Now they can't even pass.
When was the last time we actually had a budget? It's been continuing resolutions for.
It feels like 20 years, but I mean, we'll check that out during the breaks. It feels like it's been decades since we've had a clean budget, not tied to a lot of things, not an omnibus or anything like that. So, but why don't we take a break? We'll look into that a little bit over the break, and then if you guys have anything you want to chime in on, 219-845-1100 here on the Fall of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo, here on WJOB. 624 in the region. We were doing some Googling over the break. I was way off, Bob. I said it's been
Way off.
20 years since we passed a budget without an omnibus, without a continuing resolution. It was 30 years. It was 1996 that our federal government was able to pass a clean budget.
But wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Do you know when the last balanced budget was passed?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think I can look that far back in the Wayback Machine, Chuck. What year was it?
1969
Oh.
was the last time our federal government passed a balanced budget.
So what have these yahoos been doing?
Campaigning. You have to understand this was the most important election ever. So they were busy campaigning. They were busy taking their
The last one or the one coming up?
See, here's what's interesting is I don't know if look, I know you make jokes, but the last election was the most important election ever. But I have a feeling that the next election may in fact be the most important election ever, because if you don't reelect us, who is going to continue to shut down the government if you're not paying me a massive salary where I work, 9 months out of the year, if that, and get a pension for life? If you don't reelect me to do nothing in Congress, those other guys will win. You don't understand. We can't let that happen. We can't let the other guys be in charge, because then they're going to pass a continuing resolution and not pass the balanced budget. So we can't let them do that.
So you're saying that since 1968, both parties have been in charge, and neither one of them has passed a balanced budget. Is that what you're saying, Chuck?
So since 1969, I think there has been a healthy balance of Republicans in the White House, Democrats in the White House, having both parties having full control of the White House and Congress, and yet at no point, with all of that rhetoric, with all of that big talk, did either side have they been able to pass a balanced budget, or even pass a budget for that matter. And so it makes it really difficult when somebody comes to me and says, well, my side this, my side that. Well, for 30 years they haven't, right? Again, so that's where I can't really take sides here, because I've given you both opportunities and you both have failed.
I know what we need to do. We need to vote harder.
Have you voted harder in this? Yes, I'm making jokes, because what else is there to do at this point? We've tried both ways. We've tried it your way. We've tried it their way, and nobody's done anything. Everybody's campaigned. Everybody talks a big game for those couple weeks before the election, and then when it comes time to actually pass a budget, when it comes time to actually come together and do something for the greater good, we just can't do it. We blame the other guy, and that's what we do best. That's what we do best at this point, is point fingers and blame the other guy. What else do we want to talk about? Anything on your mind?
As you were talking about that, my only thought was, who does have a balanced budget? Dyer, Indiana.
Really?
Yes, we do. We have a special meeting on October 2nd. It's a public hearing to talk about and pass our budget, and it's balanced. We're not spending money we don't have. And
is it a difficult thing? Is it a difficult thing to not pass a CR? Is it difficult to not pass a balance? Is it difficult to not on the eve of a Dyer shutdown?
On a Dyer shutdown.
Has Dyer ever shut down? I've never heard of Dyer or St. John or any other community shutting down due to a lack of a budget.
Putting bicycle racks around Northgate Park, I don't get it. We've done it every year, and if you don't have it, you don't spend it. I don't get it. But
there you go. When you run for Congress, that's your yard sign. If you don't have it, don't spend it. And you'll be called a far-right radical. How dare you? So we were talking to Walt earlier. We've had the federal agents in downtown going to Portland, in Chicago. There's been this sort of standoff in Bridgeview for the last couple of weeks of people surrounding the facility. There was a story, and I think it was at Texas, where somebody opened fire on a vehicle and actually struck and I believe killed. I believe they killed. I have to look that up. If they killed people in detainment, let me look that up real quick, because I don't want to misquote that. So you had. So you had 3 victims in the Dallas ICE shooting facility. we had one from Mexico, one from Venezuela, and another from Mexico. So again, a random story of why would somebody shoot at a facility? What was the motivation? What was the reasoning? There was no good reasoning for it. What did they think they were going to accomplish? It's getting. I would say it's getting weird, but it's not even weird at this point. It's just sad. It's just sad where somebody was saying earlier. It's like we're constantly talking about that last shooting, and then we don't even know which shooting you're talking about.
You don't. I mean, it's hard when you say, well, and it's such a frequency that when the new one comes along, the old one is immediately forgotten.
Right.
And like I said earlier, you could go on. I think it was on CNN, and they had a list, and it's not. While it does appear to be predominantly Christian churches, it's nobody's immune to it, and I don't know what the answer is to that. Well, like we said, we there's an investigation that goes on after each one of these horrible, not to make light out of it, but almost tragedy of the weeks, and you try to figure out, okay, how do we protect against that, but sometimes you just can't protect or predict the instability of crazy.
Well, and even the idea that you take certain precautions for a church, you have armed guards, maybe you go so far as to have metal detectors, but then somebody crashes through the front door. Again, how do you manage something like that? How do you manage something like that without turning your church or your school
into some fortress,
into a literal fortress, right?
And I think that was one of the arguments that some folks have, whether they're willing to voice it or not, if it's in their head, is with schools. How fortified do you make schools before each kid is going into some type of military installation? But we find that even military installations aren't immune to these things. So I don't know what the answer is.
Right. No, and they're really, I mean, again, everybody wants to shout things like, well, we need gun control, we need things like that. And you have, I'm sorry, you already have thousands of gun laws in the books. It's not stopping. There's people that are, obviously going back to like Hillary Clinton. She always goes back to, well, my husband passed the Brady bill. That didn't really accomplish a whole lot. No. It was a dog and pony show for, what you could put on your weapon and how many, how big of a magazine you can have. It didn't accomplish anything. And even going back to like Charlie Kirk, it's like, well, we're gonna crack down on assault weapons, and everybody was talking about machine guns again. It's like, no, machine guns have not been legal in 40 years.
Yeah.
This guy had an old Mauser bolt action rifle. You're in nobody in Chicago. Most of the violence is being perpetrated by cheap 9mm handguns. So again, there's like,
what was it last week?
There's a high point. I don't want to get sued, but I mean, to be honest, like that's the reality. Is just cheap handguns are what are being used. People aren't using a several $1,000 tricked out AR-15 to rob a grocery store or a gas station or anything like that. So again, you can have all the laws in the books that you want, but as it turns out, criminals not following the law. So at some point, we want to get into the story about NIPSCO. This is kind of a big story. I know a couple people have sent it to me about NIPSCO got the green light from state regulators to create a first-of-its-kind subsidiary called GenCo that would be able to negotiate directly with data centers at a pivotal time when data centers projects are flooding in and electricity demand is skyrocketing. So we'll get into that maybe after the next break because that's probably a whole segment onto itself. But why don't we've got some callers? Why don't we take some? No, we're good. Okay, so
nope. It was full, and then they all bailed on us.
So let's get into this then. The Maryville-based gas and electric utility currently provides 2,300 megawatts of electricity to its entire customer base. It's looking to build another 2,300 megawatts of electric generation at the Schaefer Generating Station in Wheatfield to keep up with data center demand. And projects could need up to 8,000 milliwatts in production capacity to keep up with data centers. collections of computer servers that support online functions like social media. So essentially, we've created this cycle, Bob, that something bad happens in the world. Everybody goes on social media to spout off about it, which causes more demand, right? So you have this cycle. Like the more time you spend on Facebook complaining about the world, the more electricity NIPSCO has to generate. And ergo, you go online to complain about climate change, and you're actually generating more,
As a side note to that, folks out there, you can Google this. I don't know what it is, but there was some astronomical metric out there that being polite to AI is costing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Just like saying thank you.
Yeah, thanks, good morning, whatever it is.
Processing power to process thank you.
Because there's a response to it, and it's just some insane number that I'll look for it.
But so essentially, the idea is we have demand. We have this tremendous demand for electricity because of data centers. I was reading on the tech side about how, basically, NVIDIA chips and supercomputers and how they're just stacking, racks and racks of servers for computing power, basically, like you said, just so that AI can talk to you, the amount of power that it takes for AI to have a conversation with you or to tell you, basically completely incorrect facts about things. And so I guess the question is, Jim's out there in the hallway, and he's talked quite a bit about AI and the future of AI and what it can be used for. I wonder if, not that it's going to be a fad, but I wonder if we're overestimating what it's going to be used for or overestimating its value in the long run. Or maybe we're underestimating it and then we'll have a Terminator scenario. What? Okay, well then get a microphone on, old man. Get a microphone on and come talk. No, I think you're absolutely. I think what you're seeing is right now you have a whole bunch of people that are using it for fun. They're using it
for fun, but what I think is the big swing and a miss here is most people are using it as just a fancy Google.
Right.
I mean the amount of productivity that you can accomplish if you're properly using AI. Random example, I took some inspection forms that I use for work that in the past would take me a week to update. Truly, it would take a full 40-hour week to update. You run it through AI and you just say, hey, AI, take a look at these federal codes. I'm looking to do this type of inspection. What type of questions would you ask? And it populates it. In a minute and a half, I've now taken 40 hours worth of work, and I'm done,
So basically what you're saying is yet another government agency, another government employee is using AI. But
it's out there. So what?
So how about if we just didn't have the regulations in the first place? Then you wouldn't have to spend all that time Googling them.
Well, if these folks could keep the product in the pipeline, we wouldn't have a problem with it. But I think we're also at a moment here where this is a I don't want to say a new thing, but there's still that opportunity for people to capitalize on it.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. I agree with that. There's still that opportunity for the average person to capitalize on it. I mean, I'll just give you an example here. Like, I'm kind of moving away from the sports network, and I'm going to take a lot of our old audio files and clean them up and start playing them. And it's all done by AI. If you use it correctly, you can just punch it in, even into Google Gemini or to Alito or something like that. But the Walmart, did you guys see what the Walmart CEO said on Saturday? It just kind of blew my mind because we're on a campus, right? Walmart's CEO issues wake-up call. AI is going to change literally every job. Walmart executives aren't sugarcoating the message. Artificial intelligence will wipe out jobs and reshape the workforce. This is Walmart talking, all right? Now the country's largest private employer is making plans to confront that reality. It is very clear that AI is going to change literally every job, Chief Executive Doug McMillon said. His remarks reflect a rapid shift from just months ago in how business leaders discuss the potential human cost of the technology. So what you're saying is, I think, what was, kind of a lot of people were saying 5 or 6 months ago. And I somewhat agreed with that. I'm like, man, it's been kind of overblown. I mean, what do you really use it for? And then now I can take this show, throw it into a machine, and it'll cut it up into 2 or 3 podcasts, and I would just push it straight out. I don't really have to hire a student out of P&W to do all that for 6 or 7 hours. They can get it done in about 45 minutes. That is just one minor example. The one thing where Walmart's drawing the line is they are not going to use robots. In other words, to serve you in Walmart. They're saying as soon as we start serving robots, we will use robots. In other words, as soon as robots start buying stuff, we'll have other robots in.
Okay, hang on.
I think the biggest change with AI is initially to be at that administrative level. Like you said, having someone just parse through data, whether it's a radio show, podcast, and inspection form like I'm doing, I think that is going to be the first level of work that is really transformed by AI.
But
then you get into robots.
Let's take it back to the beginning, though. So we're saying that right now, NIPSCO needs to basically increase their electricity production at least 3 to nearly 4-fold just to keep up with data centers just in Indiana. So we're basically, and remember, this goes back to the same conversation we had when we were talking about electric vehicles. This idea was, can you imagine what would happen if half this country bought an electric car and went home at 5 o'clock at night at the end of the day and plugged them all in at the same time? We would destroy the grid. So this is kind of that same conversation of everybody wants an electric car, everybody wants AI, until we look at the demands that we're going to put on our already aging electric grid and say, okay, you guys figure it out. You figure out how to increase your demand, your production 4-fold for AI, another 2-fold for electric vehicles. NIPSCO, you figure it out, and at the same time, I'm going to complain to you because my NIPSCO rates have gone up.
So you're also talking about the new environmentalism. So when you sit down and you make, I'm going to mess around and make some images and funny images on AI, do you realize how much more of an effect on the environment you're having than starting your car?
On ChatGTP alone, annually it is 1.1 billion kilowatt hours just for ChatGTP to deal with politeness. And so just to say, hey, thanks, annually 1.1 billion kilowatt hours.
Do you realize what of an effect that is on the environment? So from what I read, and I know Tom Dockich, I know McDermott, and I think they're both trying to do the right thing along the lakefront. But Dockich came in, and they were the first ones to put that 2020, data center in there. Now, I don't know if they sold it or whatever, but whoever has it now wants to put, $5 billion into along the lakefront in the most, probably the best located piece of land in Indiana. I mean, it's right there by Chicago, but it is cut off by railroad tracks and by power lines and stuff like that. But they have water.
I was going to say the water is huge.
The water is huge, but what are you doing to the water? You're warming up the water and you're killing some of those fish that were there, right? So if you really think about it, the ruling by the IURC was a very huge ruling, and it basically says, can NIPSCO do the first of its kind deal for a public utility? Can they negotiate with Google and Microsoft and data center operators separately from what they're going to do for, Madison Avenue, or even the guys making, running their little machine shops all the way through Hammond, EC, and Gary. Yeah. They're all going to be on a different rate schedule. Now, McDermott and I think the people from the data center said, oh, my gosh, now that NIPSCO got this ruling from the IURC, now we can go forward. Well, why were they waiting for that, right? other than the fact that it probably means they're going to get cheaper power than you and I pay, right? So you have to ask yourself if it is worth bringing all those jobs and all of that that growth here to Indiana, and you, who are already paying higher rates this year, are going to pay higher rates than the guy over there doing a meme about frogs and horses that goes through the data center over here. That's an ethical question that people will have to ask.
But also, you were
and
the
they
same
won't
one,
ask. It'll just go away.
But you were the one that for years was saying, why do we not have all these headquarters along the highway like Illinois does? So, I mean, again, the same idea of you need to do something to bring that section, bring that segment here. And it sounds like we're setting it up to do that, whether we want it or not.
If you guys have been looking at this, they're talking about doubling or more the assessed valuation of Hammond. And it's not like it's not like you put a church in or a university or anything, you don't get any taxes, or a hospital that doesn't pay any taxes. It's a private entity that will pay a lot of taxes.
So now
you have the balance of environmental impact because a lot of the one in Southeast Indianapolis, when I was down there for a conference, they were on every night, everybody yelling about it, and then people saying for it. They canceled that. They're not going to do it. I think it was Microsoft or Google.
I think it was Google.
Yeah, it was a massive data center, and they're like, no thanks, not in our backyard.
Well, and I'm still trying to figure out. We've got no property in Dyer that one of these outfits could come and build one. But what I wonder is, what would necessarily be the problem? If you've got some space in your municipality or your county, I mean, they're fairly self-contained. You had mentioned, these guys are going to come in, jobs are going to skyrocket. That's just for construction. I think there might be one job, one guy at a security gate and a handful of guys running around.
You'd be surprised. There's quite a bit of security. There's maintenance. There's
putting cables in networks. But I don't know that it's even a huge job thing. I think it is more when it's done and running. I think it's probably just some self-contained unit. And I don't know, and I'm saying just because I haven't been schooled on this, I don't know what the big issue would be.
Well, and that's what was interesting. We had this big debate going on in St. John right now about St. John annexing an unincorporated area, and there was talk about data centers. There was talk about 2 data centers. And so, there's a lot of talk about that. To me, it didn't make sense. If you're going to build a data center, to Jim's point, you build it on the lake where there's already existing infrastructure. You don't just plop one down in the middle of a farm field, because then you have to bring all that infrastructure there, especially the fiber and things like that. So this idea of building along the lake makes way more sense than plopping it down in unincorporated Lake County.
I mean, there are so many issues that people really probably won't ever pay attention to, but you got to look at the long-term impact. There are certainly environmental impacts with noise and with warming the water and using the water and using an inordinate amount of power, right? I mean, when you use that kind of power, people don't realize, oh, man, I'm all environmental. Why don't you do it again, run it again, and see how many tokens you've used and what that token is in terms of its impact on the environment. And then you have that issue. You have the general issue of bifurcated paying for power. I mean, is that what we're doing? Is that the richest companies pay less for their power? Well, if you don't charge them less, then they're not going to come here. Like, I read the article, I can't find it right now, and I'm like, oh, they're waiting for the IURC ruling. I'm like, why are they waiting for that? Well, now that they've said Genco can deal directly with them, what do you think's going to happen? What do you think's going to happen?
Why is Walmart the biggest employer? Because they buy in bulk and they sell in bulk. So why, if you're buying bulk electricity, should you not get a better price than the residential?
But every guy in Dyer that has a house or woman that has a house in Dyer is buying in bulk.
Not the bulk that you're buying.
No, but they're buying as a group. All right, well, hey, we're buying all this power now. Oh wait, let's let's team up with the people in Munster and Hammond too. Now everybody's buying in bulk.
Well, and you know what? There are, with like the REMCs that are run throughout. NIPSCO, yes, NIPSCO is the northern part of Indiana, but especially once you get towards like Rensselaer, it really starts to break off into all those different REMCs where they're groups of folks that have just got together and said, we can do this ourselves. And I think the biggest issue with that is long-term maintenance. They just don't have the base. Yes, when NIPSCO's upgrading something in Hammond, they're using money that they got from ratepayers in South Bend and Goshen and Elkhart and Fort Wayne because you've got a much bigger base to spread that maintenance over. And so that would be my argument against having folks like you give me the.
All right, we got to take a break.
You need to go to the yoga.
Yeah, I'm not
against.
against
this to Tom. You wouldn't do this to Tom.
I'm not against that on the lake. I just don't think that people realize what's actually happening in terms of the bifurcated rate structure. Right. I mean, think about it. What is it, like $77 a month over the last 2 years? You're paying more in electricity, something like that, the average person? I mean, what is that, $900 a month the average person is paying more already? You know what I mean? In NIPSCO? I mean, and, check me if I'm wrong on those numbers. But, what is the right thing to do here? And how low are they going to go to attract other people to come to our area? I know you don't really care, Chuck, because you just want to go on and use AI, and so do I.
No.
But there is a massive local effect that for whatever reason they want to come to Indiana, and they want to come to Northwest Indiana because of our location. And it is just a massive amount of AI is going to be here.
You need to go to yoga. We need to take a break.
Not going.
You're not going?
No.
Okay, well then what we'll do is take a break.
No, I'm leaving. But
and then I'm going to explain how this is all the federal government's fault. And if we had less government regulation, this wouldn't be a problem.
I'm going to come do yoga with you.
You do yoga.
Bye.
We'll be back with more Follow of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo, here on WJOB. Okay, I apologize for that rude interruption. The man, some random man came in to use our microwave, and then he just said, "How dare you?" and he just runs on the radio. But we've come to expect that on a Monday. I always joke, it's like we should have like a pool to see how long it takes for him to jump on the air. Just say one thing, and just say one thing about AI. I got to jump in on that. Let's take a quick look at traffic and weather. Traffic looking surprisingly light. As we go into the 7 o'clock hour. Not a whole lot here in Indiana. Everything looking good on the 894, 65, Skyway Toll Road. You've got just a little slowdown on the Bishop Ford going into the Dan Ryan, but if you leave now, you're going to have a smooth commute up to the city. 294 looking good. Everything just looking good at the moment, but if you see anything, 219, 845, 1100. Let's take a look at weather.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 58 degrees with highs of 86 and lows of 61. We'll be having areas of fog this morning. Otherwise, it'll be sunny with much of the time being very warm and above the historical average warmth expected this week. As for tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll be having highs of 80 and lows of 58. Should be remaining warm with abundant sunshine. And then Wednesday, we'll be having highs of 75 and lows of 53. And we'll be having sun through some high clouds.
Abundant sunshine. I like the added vocabulary there. That's fantastic.
Thank
I'm
you
just
for
reading
that.
what it says.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was never this.
Ron
It was
Burgundy.
never this warm before we built the data centers. It was always cold, and then we built data centers. It must be the data centers causing this. I don't know. So we're talking about this. The idea that NIPSCO has splintered off its own little company for dealing with specifically data centers called Genco. So data centers will be able to negotiate rates and get better rates, which again, if you're buying in bulk, makes sense. So here's the problem, Bob.
Yes, Chuck. What's the problem?
We have, so I'm gonna start at the beginning.
In the beginning.
It's interesting to me. Yeah, obviously I'm not happy about paying an average of $77 more for my NIPSCO bill. But I don't necessarily blame them. I don't blame data centers. Here's who I blame. I blame everybody that sits here and has like coexist bumper stickers and, drives a Prius. If you drive a Prius, 219-845-1100, that all of these people want sort of this unicorn of we want clean energy, we want cheap energy. We want AI to make our climate change bumper stickers, but we don't want to use a bunch of electric. I mean, this is the inherent problem. And I go back, this is why, like you and other politicians get a break, because I don't blame you. I blame the people that want you to pull off miracles. They want government to give, they want the whole world running off of windmills and solar panels. They don't want to pay any more for it. They want everything to be clean energy. They don't want to pay extra for it. They want all of these things, but Elon Musk should pay for it. The Hitler devil, Elon Musk, should pay my electric bills.
You know, one thing that, and I appreciate the political exemption from you there, is...
You passed a balanced budget. You got to pass.
We do that. We've done that every year that I've been in there. What I think the politicians that I resent the most are, I spend just about every day talking with constituents and reminding them that, everybody wants everything done at no cost, and they want it done yesterday.
Everybody wants their pony, Daddy, and nobody wants to pay for it.
We're not Santa Claus. Sometimes the answer is no, and not because I don't want to do these things. Sometimes it's because you're asking for a $10 item, and we've only got $1 in the bank. What's frustrating is you get these folks, they're pretty much all in D.C., though there are some in Indiana. Let's talk about your rest station, your
$35 million rest stops.
You get these politicians that, if they started at the municipal level where money really matters, and then they go on and then they think they become Santa Claus now.
And this is ultimately, this goes back to whenever somebody tells me, why don't you run for office? I go, no. Because if I was in charge in Indianapolis, I would have said, look, you're getting a gravel road and porta-johns that will cost us $150. Like, that's what you're getting. You're not getting $35 million rest stops because, like you said, we can afford, we have $1 and yet we spent $10, yet we have the highest gas tax in the country, and yet our roads still suck because we're spending all that money on bike trails and rest stops. So again, this is the problem, is that people have gotten used to Santa Claus in government, have used to Santa Claus telling them, yes, we'll make this is the example that going back to the, where it's government shutdown eve at 7:00 here. I guess if government shuts down, I probably don't need to do legal IDs for a while.
Man.
So, but for now, it's not shut down.
For now.
So it is 7:00 in the region. You're listening to AM 1230, 104.7 in beautiful Hammond, Indiana. So we started the show. We're talking about it's government shutdown eve, one of my favorite holidays, because between the clowns on the left and the right, they haven't been able to pass a balanced budget since 1969. They've not been able to pass a budget in 30 years, and yet you still vote for them. And yet when they come home, they promise you all these things, even though they don't have money. We're $37 trillion in debt. And then you tell them, Santa Claus, I want clean energy. I want it to be cheap. I want AI. I want it to be cheap. I want bike trails, but I want low gas taxes. Bob, I want you to build us water parks and ski slopes and gazebos and pavilions. And, I don't want my taxes to go up. And if you don't do that, you're a horrible person. I'm not going to vote for you.
Well, again, this, sometimes I wonder the things I should and shouldn't say. But
just tread lightly. Carry a big stick.
Your coexist human rights bumper sticker folks are the same ones who are buying stuff from China. And you cannot be buying products from Asia and be all about human rights when they're quite literally like sewing soccer balls together with their teeth out there at 10 years old. So, it's that mentality of I want everything, I want it now, I want it cheap, give it to me, give it to me.
When I went to go put on my shirt today, I checked. I was like, is this the shirt that has holes in the – but I was going to wear it anyway because that's something going back to like something my grandfather said. Like, yeah, my shirt has a hole in it. It's still good. Like, and I will wear. I mean, again, that's the kind of mentality that I have of like, I'll wear this shirt until it literally falls. I had a pair of pants that I really liked, and I finally they split. I'm like, okay, I could probably wear those. No, wait, there's a hole in there, and I can't wear them anymore.
Did you throw them out, or did your wife throw them out for you?
I'm going to ask her to try to sew them, and we'll see how that goes. That's the one thing I would like to learn how to sew better. But again, the same point. It's like, it says a hole in it. I could still wear it. I mean. That is my mentality of like, look, I'll wear these clothes until literally like you can see me through them. But we have that society that, again, like you said, everything, we're buying stuff from China. We have 50 pairs of shoes. We have all this stuff. And yet I'm an environmentalist, right? Yeah. So, I don't know where to go from there. I mean, this is really easy stuff. But again, this is going back to the idea of blaming the federal government is, even going back to, why is it that BP had to spend billions of dollars on upgrades at their facility? It's all for pollution controls, right? So again, you don't get it both ways. We want pollution control. We talk about how back in the old days there used to be, smog and all this. We've invested to clean that up, which is a good thing, but you also can't complain when something costs more because you put massive regulations and massive pollution controls on those systems. I mean, even going back to like NIPSCO, they're shutting down coal power plants and replacing them with, hope and change and thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Hopefully the wind blows today. Otherwise, we're sitting in the dark, and the data center is going to go dark. Probably not. Right? I mean, who's going to go dark if there's rolling blackouts? It's not going to be them. It's going to be you. So, I mean, that becomes the inherent problem is you want all this stuff. You want all this clean energy. You want all these things, but then you don't want to pay for them. So,
which to Jed's point, Jed, if you're still out there, now that we do have this separate entity that can negotiate with these companies for bulk pricing, will there be something in those contracts that guarantees power first?
Right.
When there are rolling brownouts, rolling blackouts, whatever they may be, when that happens, not if, do these folks then hop to the front of the line? Where now, if you've got an area out of power, they're going to work to get emergency services and hospitals up first.
And then people will be going to ChatGPT to ask why the power's out,
yes.
Causing more demand on the grid. So again, self-fulfilling prophecy. Do we have calls? You want to take two?
We have
go
two.
Ahead. Good morning, caller on the air.
Good morning.
Hey, little traffic for you real quick. Southbound lanes of the Dan Ryan are closed. I guess there was a shooting on the expressway. So,
You know, I was going to say this, and
but everything's fine.
when we
It's
were
fine.
talking about the National Guard, and I think I made this joke last week or the before, if they're going to do anything, patrol the Dan Ryan. Don't hang out at the Bean. Don't do that. Go to the Dan. If you want to stop crime, go to the Dan Ryan, go to the Bishop Ford, and just hang out there, and you will find plenty of crime. So, let me pull that up because I'm not seeing it on the grids yet. But so, again, perfectly safe city.
I guess the state troopers are walking down the lanes looking for a gun that got tossed, or I don't know, but everything's fine.
So I am not seeing it yet. You know. So we're basically saying the outbound Dan Ryan.
Southbound. Yeah, right.
Okay, here we go. Possible shooting shuts down the Dan Ryan. Suspected shooting has led to the closure on the Dan Ryan. Outbound express lanes are closed at 29th Street with traffic being forced into the local lane. So the express lanes are closed at 29th. So again, everything's fine. Yet
It's fine.
in my lifetime, I've seen dozens of instances where the Dan Ryan. I once joked with somebody before we were leaving. It was like a Sunday morning. I was checking the traffic. He's like, "Oh, there's no traffic. It's a Sunday morning." I go, "The Dan Ryan shut down because of a shooting." He's like, this is why we check these things, because there's a slight chance that one of the roads you're on is going to be closed due to a shooting or road rage incident or whatever. So. So southbound Dan Ryan closed to a shoot because that's normal behavior, right? That's normal behavior, sitting in traffic and you shoot at the person next to you. That's just normal, acceptable behavior, I guess.
Yeah, your boss will totally understand. Your boss will be fine with it. Hey, I'm going to be a little bit late. Someone got shot on Dan Ryan again. Oh, okay, no problem.
So what are your thoughts about the Guard coming to Chicago?
I don't. Good. What do I care? Good.
Well,
I'm not a criminal.
Well, and so
they can walk around all they want for all I care.
And so it's interesting to see the sort of the divided reaction. Somebody had a video that went viral the other day where two little old ladies were like having coffee, and the National Guard was walking by. They stopped and thanked them, said, "Thank you for being here." Stay, again, because these are the vulnerable people, right? The little old ladies that are just trying to go out and walk the street. These are the people that need to worry about being mugged, about being, whatever. And
get their purse stolen.
Right. Get your purse stolen, get your phone stolen on the train. So these are the vulnerable people. These are the ones that are like, hey, look, having these guys walking through my neighborhood inherently makes my walk home safer, right? And they weren't even, I don't think for the most part, whether they're armed or not, but so that becomes the inherent thing. Is it seems like the average person walking through the neighborhood is going, look, this is good. Anything to make my life safer is a good thing.
Would you be scared of him, Chuck? Would you be scared of him?
As you said, being a law-abiding citizen, I am not. But so this goes back to my point, though, is what does concern me is we now have a situation where they are unwelcome and they do not have the cooperation of local authorities. J.B. Pritzker is going to come out later and basically decry this. Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to decry this. So you have a situation where you have sort of two opposing forces. You have a federal agency that's not welcome, and then you have a local agency that's basically not allowed to work with them. So then the question becomes, how do you have two separate agencies or two separate groups of law enforcement that don't cooperate, don't communicate? How do they get anything done?
Well, and that's where it's hard for us to put that mindset because, so Chuck, how would you feel about this? You're down in St. John. I got to tell you, 2/3 of the residents in St. John would probably be walking up to those National Guard members and saying, "Oh, you want a sandwich? I brought you some bottles of water. It's warm out there today. It's bountiful sun, as we've heard today." And so it's a cultural difference where you're right. You go to Chicago and you now have two forces that are opposed to each other. But down here, yeah, whether you're a law-abiding citizen or not, most of these folks down here are going to roll up on them and give them water because we support them.
Did you guys see what went on? At what's been going on every day at that Broadview facility over there?
Is it Bridgeview or Broadview? But
Broadview.
So you have this situation where you have an ICE facility and you have dozens of protesters outside. You have constant clashes. Same thing that's happening in Portland right now is you have people, but here's the concerning thing. Again, going back to like people like J.B. Pritzker, is in his last commentary, there was sort of this, I'm going to call it finally get to call it a dog whistle. There's like this dog whistle call to action about, we are being invaded by federal authorities. They are coming in. We don't want them. There's sort of this, again, this is where that risk of a misunderstanding, a risk of somebody, shooting at National Guard. What would happen if that were to happen? Imagine some punk kid decides to do a drive-by in the National Guard. I mean, that is going to escalate things beyond anything that we want to see, right? I mean, that's the concern, is that when you have this situation, we are setting things up for this potential, right? And again, I think the problem that I've come to realize is far too many people are, I call them like first order thinkers. You don't think about consequences. You think about actions and you don't think about consequences. And so that's the problem, is we have to look like playing chess, right? You have to look at the long game here. What are the potential ramifications of National Guard in Chicago? It could reduce crime. Hopefully it does. Hopefully that presence is enough to, change the look and feel of neighborhoods. But even to like Bob's point we've been talking about for weeks, is the idea, they're not a permanent fixture. Right. Once they leave, things go back to normal, just like leaving Afghanistan and 72 hours later. So that becomes the question, is if there's not going to be a cultural shift, if there's not going to be a change in policy because of people like J.B. Pritzker saying everything's fine, you could have thousands of National Guard troops walking the streets of Chicago. The second they leave, it goes back to the way it was.
Yeah. Now, here's what I don't get about the whole thing going on in Broadview. Now, Rob or Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, but if a Dyer police officer was in the active duty of just doing anything, his job, and I started disrupting what he was doing, I think about 99.9% chance I'd be in the back of his squad car in about 2 seconds.
I would agree with you.
So why don't they just grab and round these people up and throw them in jail? I don't get it.
Aside from saying it's a cultural thing, who knows what orders have been passed down? I think we talk often about, when you look back at events, it's, were there stand down orders given? What was their job out there to? Because
were there undercover agents there at the time?
Yeah, were there 275 undercover agents, whatever it was? But no, to your point, I think it's probably less on what the officers want to do and more on what they've been told to do.
Well, it's probably job security too. If you get caught basically disobeying orders,
they'd hang you out to dry. But again, that's a cultural thing where I don't know that where we see some of these concerning things, I don't know that they support law enforcement and the police. Where you see that in in some of our communities here, and the communities support them.
Well, we can go back to Chicago. There was, and I'm trying to remember how many years ago this was, where basically Chicago police disrupted a city council meeting and said, "You don't have our backs. We can't do our job because you, the city council, you, the mayor, don't support us. So we are afraid to do our jobs properly. We just sit in our cars because we are afraid to do our jobs because we don't feel that we have the support that we need to enforce the laws effectively." So this is nothing new. This is something that's been going on for decades in Chicago.
Yeah, no, you're right. All right, I'll let another caller get in here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's take the next caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, Chuck, Brad. Hey, how's it going, you two? When you guys get the chance, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I said good morning.
Oh, yes, good morning. Sorry, slightly under the weather here. But when you guys get a chance, if you could turn up the on-hold levels, it'd be really easier to follow the conversation. I got a headphone in one ear.
I brought my screwdriver, and we'll do that right after the show.
Yeah, can't that guy who comes in, that morning guy, can't he do it? I mean,
he doesn't have the little
he just
tiny...
has to get on this.
I think I'm the only one that has the tiny screwdriver.
You know what? I'm calling out all the power. I'm calling out all the power companies.
I even got a laugh out of the caller.
Okay, go ahead, Brad. How are you? I'm sorry. I apologize for the immaturity of my co-host.
I'm a child.
Oh, no. Stay young. That's all we got. It's our only hope. No, I'm calling out the power companies. It's all a bunch of lies. It is all a bunch of absolute lies. We do not need any of this extra power. All of this AI is going to be, trust me, man, 30 years in the tech business, and nobody's talking about the hierarchical reasoning models that have blown ChatGPT and all the rest of them out of the door. Just wipe them out, and you can run them on a 15-year-old computer. Okay, look it up. There's a Singaporean guys out there. They figured it out. It's HRM. It's going to take every LLM model of AI and literally cram it. So NIPSCO, ComEd, all of your data center, political, grease palming crap, water stealing, it's all crap. It's all going to evolve overnight. And these models are going to, these models, they put it up against ChatGPT, Claude, and one other one, I think it's O3 Mini High, which is OpenAI. And it couldn't even solve Sudoku puzzles. And these other ones solved it in seconds. And they're a tenth of the model right now. So if nobody's talking about this, it's the same thing that I called about years ago, saying that if NIPSCO was truly ahead of themselves and they wouldn't wait forever to talk to some political guy that's going to give whatever promotion to get it here, they would be letting people mine. They would be mining Bitcoin and giving it back to the customers. That's what they're doing in Germany. Okay, that's what T-Mobile does. They'll let you stake your crypto, and they'll mine it for you and pay your bill.
Well, and that's the interesting thing, Brad, is now I can't. Now it has become unaffordable to mine Bitcoin here in the region,
right?
Because of the kilowatt hour costs. So, Brad, here's an interesting thing. I was at a meeting last week, and they basically. So here's to your point. What essentially the plan is at this point is, grab as many NVIDIA processors as you can, stack as many of them as you can in the room, and just basically send brute horsepower into the internet looking for answers. And that's sort of the plan right now, is like, how many NVIDIA processors can we link together in a room? That it is, again, this brute horsepower of like, let's find 10,000 NVIDIA cards, let's stack them all together in a room, and then it can answer some of your questions. It can basically do this brute force data mining. But that's the plan. The plan is just get as many processors as you can, put them in a room, and raw horsepower. And to your point,
well, everybody's making money.
This reminded me when they mentioned it. It reminded me of, what was that old saying about put 10,000 monkeys at 10,000 typewriters? It's basically brute force. You're putting as much horsepower as you can into the system and hoping to get something out of it. But again, that's, like you said, the inefficiency of the system right now.
Oh, absolutely. I don't mean to change it because I'm not as prepared, but did anybody see what Tulsi Gabbard said about Obama and crew? This is huge, man. She's accusing them basically of treason. And they've got all these documents linked and everything. And then you got I've been saying January 6th was a hoax since the day it happened. If anybody knows better, go on Rumble or BitChute and just look for the video, all the things wrong with the January 6th Capitol. Those guys were getting weapons handed to them outside of sliding doors in the front of the Capitol there.
So here's
this is absolute insanity.
Here's the thing, Brad.
Go ahead.
We have to handhold on these stories. We have to handhold because there's a lot of people that have no idea what you're talking about. So
I know.
And here's what
I don't know what to do though.
But here's what I was telling Bob. It's interesting because at some point I was trying to find this testimony from a few months ago where they said at one point they said, what was it, like there was only 20 undercover agents January 6th. And then there was
first none.
Well, there was first none, then there was like 20, then there was 30. But then they clarified because they kept, again, this is kind of like if you don't know what a FOIA is. Sometimes when you have to FOIA, you don't get to go fishing. You have to specify. At some point over the weekend, this report came out that said it was because they asked about undercover. They didn't ask about plain clothes. And then when they asked about, you didn't say plain clothes, you said undercover.
Yep.
So there were 274 plain clothes agents at the United States Capitol on January 6th. So the interesting thing, though, Brad, is that I have a friend, Steve Baker. If you guys he's been on the radio with us a few times. He was one of the journalists that was indicted for being a journalist on January 6th. There is lots of interesting footage that's available of people that were never charged and aren't in the databases of January 6th insurrectionists that were breaking windows, that were yelling, "Get inside." And we don't know who these guys are. Somehow we've managed to find every little old lady that wandered into the Capitol 8 hours later. But these group of guys that were the ones that were breaking the windows and, pushing people through the windows, we don't know who they are. So it's very interesting. And so that becomes the question. Wherever you land on the January 6th scale, you have to understand that there's more to the story, and you're not going to find it on CNN or Fox News for that matter.
No, and that's what people really have to understand. I mean, people, and what I've noticed is there's whatever happened to Charlie Kirk. I'm just going to leave it there. Everyone seems to be trusting whatever the media is saying, and I'm sorry, but this same media lied to you about COVID. They've lied to you about the economy. They have definitely lied to you about cryptocurrency and what's literally coming down the pipe in a month and a half. I mean, what we've been talking about is coming in a month and a half. So why are they trusting what all the stories are now?
Well,
I think this is truly a turning point here, and we're going to start to be people like ourselves are going to start to proliferate a little bit more, and we're going to get a little bit more mouthy, and I think people are going to finally start to realize, hey, wait a minute, maybe we are getting lied to about a lot of things, and just because we, are nervous of it, I don't think we should not be talking about these things. This is getting a little too obvious at this point. But go ahead, Chuck.
It's interesting, though, in my lifetime, Brad, we went from being, it's one thing to be a conspiracy theorist. It's one thing to say, hey, I'm curious about what happened on 9/11 or what have you. It's one thing to go out there and say, yeah, I think, Jewish space lasers blew up the World Trade Center. Look, that's a crazy, conspiracy. But then it's gone from that to if you simply ask questions, an event happens.
Right.
And if you simply ask questions, you are demonized. And again, it used to be the job of the media to go, okay, here's what it looks like, but we're going to ask questions. And one of the things I learned in my decades of being a journalist in Chicago is sometimes things are obvious. Sometimes person A, shot point person B, end of story. Sometimes it's more complicated than that, and you will not get to the bottom of stories if you don't ask questions. And that means a lot of times, sometimes you're asking questions that go nowhere. And that's the whole point, though. But if you're not asking, you're never going to get the full answer if you don't ask questions. If you demonize the people that ask the questions, we're never going to get answers.
That's my fear, that all of this talk, and because let's face it, both sides do all just as big of propaganda. They all are in Congress. They all let the laws be legal to propagandize them against you. And if we don't ask questions, they're going to kill the small content creators like us, and they're going to just come by one day in the studio, open our mouths, and chop out our tongue. And that's basically how I feel. You're chopping off my tongue because I'm asking questions. As an American, wouldn't you want a super investigative populace here? Somebody that can make sure that we've got everybody's back, and they're saying if you got everybody's back, you're hurting feelings. I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. It's coming down the pipe, Chuck. We've been here for a while, and it's going to get really good because I'm not living for the weekends anymore, Chuck. I'm living for the week because how exciting is it? Every freaking Monday, how exciting is it?
I mean, look, what's that joke? I mean, like we're basically having, every week it seems like a month has gone by with the news cycles, right? I mean, like it's. I would say, like, man, this week has been one heck of a month, right? I mean, that's the thing is that there's just so much going on, but I worry about our little, brain that, for generations our job was just to be hunter-gatherers while wearing a loincloth, trying not to get eaten by, a tiger or something. How is our little human brain processing? Like even I was talking last week about this idea of every time there's a high-profile murder, you get to watch 5 different angles of it. Like how is our little brains, like long-term, and I think about, our kids and things like that, like how are we going to, what is this going to do to the average human to sit here and just watch people die on TikTok every week, to watch all these things, what they call doom scrolling? Yep. Like we are about to do, we're engaging in some serious, what do you call it? Just basically, like we're engaging in, we're doing some experiments on our children, essentially, right? We're doing some experiments. We're going to see. We're basically using our children. We're using our adolescent children, our teenage children as like guinea pigs to find out what happens if I consume nothing but just social media for hours on end, or whatever the case might be. And then we wonder why everybody's such a mess, why everybody's having, everybody's drugged up, everybody's having issues sleeping. And everybody I talk to right now, I mean, I talked to somebody the other day that he generally was somebody who stayed out of the fray of this. And he goes, I just feel, he used the word apocalyptic. He said, everything feels off and it feels apocalyptic. Yep. And a lot of people I'm running into in the streets that used to not talk about this stuff, they're saying, look, this everything is feeling off right now, and I blame that the with the super collider in Europe for that, but the alternate timeline it created. But
I think you're absolutely right.
You can say that, but every time I bring up Building 7, you recoil.
Hey, look at that! We got to take a break. We'll be right back.
Building 7 went down without hitting any planes. What? All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Hey, I am still on the radio. Okay, don't you guys start with me. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Bob.
Have a good week, you too. Thanks a lot.
The opinions of Brad and Bob do not represent those of the station, the ownership, or the fill-in host here on Mondays, WJOB. We'll be back with more Fall of Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo, here on WJOB. .28 in the region. Before we get into it, let's get back to there's some breaking news downtown. The Dan Ryan Expressway was closed earlier outbound at 29th due to an investigation into a possible shooting. Now it's gone from a shooting to a possible shooting. And so the outbound express lanes were closed. They have shortly after 7 o'clock, the lanes were reopened. So you might have a little bit of gaper's delay or whatever if that's the case. But I mean, right now, let me refresh my screen. Yeah, we've got heavy traffic, basically the entire length of the Dan Ryan heading into downtown. Bishop Ford is clear to the merge, and then you're basically just slow traffic all the way to, essentially where the shooting, possible shooting occurred. So if you're getting in the car now, you're going to have you're going to be sitting in some traffic on the Dan Ryan. Other than that, here in Indiana, things looking good on 65, 8094, Skyway Toll Road, everything looking good there. 294, you've got the usual slowdown in that construction zone around Indian Head Park, Willowbrook. Other than that, things looking good on 294 if you're heading that way. Let's take a look at weather.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 59 degrees with highs of 86 and lows of 61. We'll be having areas of fog this morning, otherwise sunny with a lot of time. Much time and very warm. And it should be above the historical average warmth expected this week. And then tomorrow, Tuesday, we'll be having highs of 80 and lows of 58. It should be remaining warm with abundant sunshine. And then Wednesday, we'll be having highs of 75 and lows of 53. We'll be having sun through high clouds.
What happened to the bountiful sun? Did you not read bountiful
no
sun?
longer
Because
No,
I
it was
teased you?
abundant the entire time.
Abundant. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. What do I know?
Thank you for that. That voice you hear interrupting and derailing our show. This is why we're not her favorite show, because you keep interrupting in the middle of her trying to do weather.
She told me earlier, she goes, I'm prepared for you to be salty about this for a few weeks.
Oh, no, you have to understand, we hold grudges around here.
Yeah, that's what we do.
I was about to say, what's it going to take for us to make it your favorite show?
We retain water and hold grudges. That's exactly what we do. So you and Wednesday morning show Tom.
I said you guys were a close second.
A close second. A close second.
I don't buy it.
Maybe, does he let you go? Do you go swim in his pool or something? Is that why? I don't have a
No,
pool. I'm
no,
sorry.
no.
He has a warm pool at his house. Maybe he's like, he lets all the producers come over on the weekends. Like, come on by, hang out, come swimming.
We don't even bring coffee or
He
anything.
gives them VIP passes to all the festivals in Whiting. Speaking of Wickedly Whiting coming up, one of my other favorite events that goes on in the region, Wickedly Whiting coming up. I think let me go double check. I think it's this weekend. So it's fun that they do stuff like that. Let's look at the schedule. And Wickedly Whiting is...
What is Wickedly Whiting while you are...
Well, you think it
Googling.
would be, guys, when I hit the button, it should be right there, October 3rd and 4th. So Wickedly Whiting this coming weekend. This is my favorite time of season when it gets a little cooler, so I get to wear my flannels when it's not abundant sunshine and whatnot. But we have a beautiful week in store, looking at 80s all week. So enjoy it. I think this should be the last week of that type of 80 degrees consistently. But enjoy it while you can. It's almost soup and chilly weather. So what else do you want to talk about, Bob? Or if you guys want to call in, 219-845-1100. We've been talking about all sorts of things. Why don't we recap what's going on in Michigan real quick? So we have, as of this point, we have 4 dead at an LDS church in Grand Blanc, Michigan. A 40-year-old Iraq war vet drove his pickup truck through the front door, shot some people, set the building on fire. 2 officers responding neutralized him. And so we talked about just sort of the idea of, we look for explanations in these things, and sometimes there's not an explanation. Sometimes there's not they're not going to go back and find some manifesto that explains why he did these things or what was going through his head. And obviously it's disappointing to see on the social media side of things how everybody's hoping that it's the other side, how everybody's shouting, oh, he had American flags on his pickup truck, ergo he's MAGA, he's a Marine vet, ergo he's MAGA. So it's sort of like this idea that both sides are hoping it's not their side, and sort of celebrating the fact that it wasn't their side, which is sad to see. So
let's talk happy things.
yeah, you got anything happy?
Happy
I mean,
things. I saw pictures of you on the interwebs this weekend. Are you running a vineyard down in St. John?
it depends on if the IRS is listening or not. Depends on if ATF and excise are listening. So I've been growing grapes down in St. John for a few years now, ever since I moved in down there. My vineyard is growing abundant because of the abundant sunshine.
Because of the abundant sunshine.
So I need a little more abundant sunshine. But yeah, no, I've been growing grapes for a while, and then the last couple weekends we crushed our grapes and are in the process of making wine.
Now here's a goofy question. Those grapes that you're using for the wine, are they? I'm gonna feel dumb even asking this. Are they edible grapes, or is there a specific type of grape that's best for vineyarding, and you don't want to eat those, but they make good wine?
No, they're poisonous grapes. Yes, I'm using poisonous grapes.
I don't know.
And I'm mixing
maybe they're nasty and tart.
And I'm just like this radio show.
Yeah, nasty and tart.
So to your point, wine grapes are a little bit different than traditional, like sort of Concord grapes or anything like that. So this is not. So there are obviously varieties of grapes. I actually brought some in from California. I went and picked some up yesterday. So you can get like Merlot, Zinfandel. There's all kinds of different grapes. And so because obviously if I went and grabbed some grape plants, some cuttings from California and tried to plant them here in Indiana, they wouldn't do so well. So these are basically, these are more cold weather. They come from Michigan. So yeah, you have varieties and they all have their own sort of, there's people, these, the Psalms, they can taste it and go, oh, this comes from the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Like, no, it tastes like wine to me. So, but yeah, no, it's just something that's kind of like I call it my big, Zen garden vineyard. We do, what's that thing called where the bonsai? It's like a giant bonsai for me where I just go out there and trim and then we make some wine. And
I saw you there with a big oaken barrel or something.
Yeah, so I try to make about 5 gallons a year. So I've got some in the basement. We'll just see how it turns out. It takes a little while. You got to get, everything. It's like one of those weird things about grapes and about making wine is that, every season's a little different. Even like in California, they have different weather. They have different, whether you have wildfires, whether you have a drought, all these factors go into play in making wine. But, for the most part, for me, it's just kind of something that we've been doing since I was a kid. It's something I force upon my young children. So now they help me. I didn't throw any of them, like they didn't use their feet or anything like that. Although that's a possibility, but it's sort of like a family tradition that I've been trying to pass along. And it's good to make cheap wine, and just as long as the excise police aren't, I give it away. I don't sell it. I don't have like a roadside. Like a rogue.
Roadside stand with eggs and melons.
Yeah, and wine, but
might do well. No, I just saw that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
I don't see many. Is it Vintner? Vintner? Is that what you would call yourself?
It's the chips. No, is it a Vintner? I don't know.
I don't know.
No, I mean a vicar. I think is it a vicar? Is that Orchards? I don't know.
The vicar of St. John.
Yeah, there you go. That could be my new moniker. Summer of Vicar here in WJOB. No, it's again, it's just something that I make enough to make about 5 gallons, and we'll make it this week. We'll put it and let it do its thing, ferment, and all the magical things happen in the container, and then we'll put it in a barrel, and we'll see what turns out. So, we've got some calls. Want to take some calls? Go ahead. We'll take some calls. Good morning, caller on the air.
Good morning, Chuck and Bob.
Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, sir.
I want to talk about unnecessary spending.
Oh, so do I. Where do you want to start?
Well, first thing, City of Hammond, the council or the City of Hammond passed the ordinance for a food and beverage tax, right? Mm-hmm. So all of the people in the Hammond, everybody's paying a food and beverage tax if you buy something from Hammond, Indiana, food and beverage. Now,
and then real quick, though, that money was
the city of Hammond, Indiana is in debt. They owe they're in debt.
But remember, these are project specific taxes. So in the case of food and beverage, I think it was going towards the volleyball courts, right? I mean, it was one of the things.
That's what I want to talk about, because I heard yesterday morning on the news, Hammond annexed the sports complex in Hammond, Indiana, soccer field, soccer courts, and basketball courts, and it costs $10 million. Now, is that paid off because of the food and beverage tax, or now the residents of Hammond, Indiana, have to pay that?
So it's going to two things. So it's going to the Sportsplex, but it's also going to be going to the new train station that will be built eventually someday in downtown Hammond, that Hammond is paying for separately from the existing.
Was it necessary for Hammond to add more courts? They could have instead of wasted $10 million, bring that debt down in Hammond, Indiana. Was it necessary for them to do it?
So this becomes, I'm going to ask Bob to put his balanced budget town president hat on and talk about, so again, when I see projects and so we have a food and beverage tax, but it has a purpose. So it has a purpose. It's expanding the Sportsplex. It's going to the new train station. Whether I agree with the project or not, when we look at something like expanding the Sportsplex has been very successful. And they talk about sort of this thing of, local residents use it, but it's also bringing in outside teams are coming in. They're having tournaments, competitions, and people.
But where's the money? Where's the money going? All the money coming in, people coming in, all this stuff coming in. It shouldn't have cost $10 million to annex it. They should have had the money sitting in there to pay it off. It's somebody's putting money in their pocket, but it's not going to what it's supposed to go.
Well, and that becomes the question about economic development, and that's always sort of my argument. So one of my issues, like even going back to the airport, is it's like, hey guys, all we have to do is extend this runway a little bit, and we'll create 86,000 jobs. And that's documented. That is in the documentation. That is in the DEIS or the FEIS or whatever it was for the airport. And it's the same thing when you build a train or anything like that. You say, we're going to have 86,000 jobs, $1 billion in economic development. All these. If we build a new bathroom for the bike trail, we're going to create economic development. And this becomes my question: is, to me, I go back to, I just call it all voodoo economics. But again, I can see this idea of if you have a sportsplex, but the problem is if all of your neighbors have sportsplexes, then it's not going to work. But if you have the sportsplex, if you have the premier sportsplex, and everybody's coming in to use it, you're creating economic development. You're creating economic development for restaurants and for hotels and things like that. And there's innkeeper tax on the hotels, and there's a food and beverage tax when you come to town to eat, to go to the. I mean, so again, where do you find the balance on this, Bob?
Well,
I'm going to ask Bob because he's elected, and then you get to chime in as well, Mike. But go ahead, Bob. What are your thoughts on this?
For especially dumping money into sports venues, the only reference that I have that I can speak to is Dyer. And so we've got Central Park where we put about $5 or $7 million in the north end of Central Park with our sports complex up there, and we now get a bunch of tournaments into town. Now these tournaments, they'll never pay for the facility, but if you're using TIF dollars that are meant to drive economic development, then we do find that these folks are dining at our restaurants, and then the hope is new restaurants come because they say, hey, look, you've got a captive audience here. But there is an initial output from the community that it is a bit of a gamble. Because what if you do spend this money and then nobody shows up?
And so this is my inherent issue, is that town leadership, city leadership, mayors, city councils, basically make these gambles and don't ever sit down. And this is my same issue with the train. Everybody said, why you hate the train? It's because they sold it as this great thing that's going to happen. And at no point in the hundreds of articles in the newspaper and all of these meetings did anybody say, well, here's the potential downside. Every action has reactions, right? And so everybody said, here's the 86,000 jobs that we're going to create. Everybody says, here's the positives. Here's all the great stuff that's going to happen. And I think that's one of my issues with politicians in general is, if I was a politician, whether it's a town councilman or whatever, I'd say, guys, we've got a project. Here's what it's going to cost. here are the potential upsides, and here are the potential negatives. If this project does great, here's what could happen. If this project goes south, here's what could happen. You make those decisions. Far too often, you have town councils and city councils making decisions at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday that 5 people attend. They don't know. They don't even know what's being passed. And they are making major decisions for the future of their communities and not having these conversations of, hey, everybody, we know you don't normally come to our meetings. This is the one time you probably should come to the meeting or whatever. We're going to have, this big meeting. Here's what we're talking about. And this is where I go to people like Rick Rifa, because they have always done a great job of doing that. Say, hey guys, this big thing is coming. We should talk about it. Right. And that's one of the problems that I have with most local politicians is they do these things, they pass these resolutions, and they don't tell anybody, hey, this is one time you should be paying attention and coming, and we should be discussing. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, it's like, fine, okay, they spent that money. But like, okay, Hammond did a good thing. They finally spent the money to fix right there by Kuziak's place, Summit Street. That was money finally used the right way, because I never went down that street. One time I went down the street, I thought my car, I didn't have rust on my car, but because of the bad condition of that road, it would have found rust and knocked it off my car. Now, there's other things in the city that needs to be fixed and taken care of. They should have done that before wasting $10 million that, okay, fine, maybe I don't use that thing a lot or ever go there or do that stuff. There's quite a few other people, but there's people that do use it. But I'd rather see roads and signs and improvements into the city instead of that situation. So I'm going to let you go and let other people comment on that.
Before you go, though, I want to ask you a question, though, and this becomes this question about accountability and where do we, the voters, where is our accountability? Because, for instance, I talked at length last year about how your city decided to kick out a haunted house that's been there for 30 plus years and decided to kick them out so they can build a Chili's. And that was a decision that your mayor and city council made. There was a little bit of discussion, at the city council meeting. Nobody really showed up. One of the problems that I have, Mike, is that so many people come to me after the fact and go, Chuck, why is there this wheel tax? Why is there this food and beverage tax? Why are there these new taxes? And I say to them, they say, what can I do about this tax? I say, well, you can go back in time a couple years to where your city passed that tax. Because again, we're passing taxes. Nobody's paying attention until the bill comes a year or two later, and then people are saying, well, why, what am I paying this for? Where's this? What's going on here? And that's the problem, is that people aren't paying attention, and they come on the back end and go, what can I do about it? And at that point, it's too late. So where is the accountability of our average taxpayer? If people are so concerned about all of these new taxes, wheel taxes, and again, I joke about the fact that MX was on these airways with me 15 years ago down at the old studio talking about wheel taxes and all these taxes that are coming, and nobody cared. And now we're on the back end, and now everybody cares about the taxes.
Yeah, I just kind of, I'm just worried that why did $10 million have to be spent on something like that?
Well, again, who is there at the meeting? You can go back and watch the meeting where they approved it, and there's probably 5 people in the audience, and not really paying attention. So I mean, that becomes a question: is where does the accountability from the voters to show up at these meetings and go, hey, can we talk about this before you add a new tax to pay for something that only a handful of people are going to use? I mean, again, Hammond
does pretty good of everything around. I've lived here quite a few years now, and I tell you, from the city I left before to Hammond, I am more happy in Hammond because of the city really keeps the police force in good operation. The city workers too, because down our alley, when you put something out that can't fit in a garbage can, less than a week they got it gone. Other cities are doing that too. I'm not just picking on Hammond, saying Hammond. Other cities, Griffith, and all the other cities.
There's a cost to that. The more government services,
right?
So that goes back to my earlier point about all the other things. Is that if you want government services, you can't complain when it costs you extra money, right? I mean, that's the problem.
Right.
You can't say, hey, I want all this stuff, but Elon Musk should pay for it. That becomes the inherent problem and I think that's where we get to decide what community that becomes my core issue is if you want to live in a community with a bunch of government services, with a bunch of, if you want to live in a community where the government entertains your children and builds you bike bridges, go live there, but then also don't complain about the cost. I don't want those. When I was on these airwaves talking about moving from Munster to St. John, people said, well, there's nothing there. I go, yeah, it's great. There's nothing there. It's great. I said, there's a Dunkin' and a Strax. That's all I need. I don't need the government to entertain me. I don't need all these fancy things. I'm going because it's a simple community, like the community I grew up in, Dyer. It's a simple community. They take care of the basic needs. And they have a few extras, but they don't go over the top. They pass balanced budgets. That's where I want to lay my head at night, in a community with a balanced budget, not one that's hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. So,
right.
Hey, I appreciate the call.
Alrighty, well, you both have a nice day, and all the people that listen and everybody out there have a nice, wonderful, and safe day.
Thank you, sir. You too. Let's go ahead and take this last call before we take our break. No, okay.
You hung up on him
again. You can call back. So again, that becomes my main point, Bob, is this idea that if you want to, I use the example, and again, I've been doing this so long, I've told these stories many times on the air. There are people that say, like, imagine if somebody came to your town council meeting, Bob, and said, hey, why don't you guys build a beach? Why is there no skiing in Dyer? And you have to say, hey, look, there's probably no scenario where I can build you a mountain so you can downhill ski, right? I mean, again, if you want to ski, you probably should move somewhere that there's skiing. If you want to live at the beach, you probably should move, to Florida. I can't build you a beach. As silly as that sounds, there's the same people that come here generally from Illinois and go, why don't you have all of these things? And you kind of say, well, why did you leave Illinois? Well, it was expensive. So why was it expensive? Because we had all those things.
With that, in that conversation, I get that an unusual amount is folks that buying a house is a completely voluntary transaction.
You get to decide where to live.
You get to decide. And what confuses me sometimes is when folks move into a community like Dyer, or any of these other communities.
Bob, why don't you build a Trader Joe's, Bob? I want a Trader Joe's, Bob. Why don't you build it?
But what I don't understand is, like, what you moved here. You moved here for a reason, and when you move in, hopefully you've done your due diligence to say, okay, these are what the school, this is what the schools have to offer. This is what the community has to offer. This is what you can and can't do in the community. So to move in and then want to upend it because, well, this is what I want, I will never understand that. Because what I would do is, if I'm going to move somewhere, we're going to take a look as a family, like, okay, where can we afford? What are we looking for? What are we looking to get out of a community? And again, I'm not going to say, you know what, let's move from Dyer to St. John, but then once I'm in St. John, every single week just rail on everyone because I don't have beachfront property with a ski lift behind me. Well, that's not what St. John offers. If you want that, you go somewhere else. And I don't quite understand where people kind of get the gumption to do that. Now, some things are minor. Hey, I'll take golf carts as an example. Hey, I've had this golf cart for 20 years in the community I used to live in. I could go all over with it. How come you can't do that now? Well, because you can't. You can't. But if driving a golf cart was such a staple of your life and family, why would you move to Dyer? And so you put that against the folks coming over from Illinois, which we're finding are a majority conservative. They're looking to escape taxes. They're looking to escape everything that Illinois is. And sometimes it's that slight reminder of, hey, remember when your property taxes were $10,000 a year and they're $3,000 here? Well, you probably got some more services for that than here.
Slightly, not enough to justify the $10,000.
Not a lot, but you were probably getting something else. And that's okay. If you want that, that's what that costs. But here, this is what you get. And people seem to be happy with it.
Well, and again, that's sort of the charm of where we live here in the region is you have those options. You have, if you want to live somewhere that has, again, like Crown Point has the square. If you want to live near the mall, you can go live in Hobart. If you want all the bike trail amenities, you can obviously live here in Hammond. But again, that idea of move to St. John, and why do we not have this? That's always, like you said, it's a really interesting thing to me. And, obviously the extreme example is the beach, but there's a lot of people that come in and go, why don't we have this? Like, because we need to pass a balanced budget. So why don't we take a break? We'll be back with more Fall of Chuck and Fall of Bob here on WJOB. Hey, as we approach the 8 o'clock hour here on WJOB, let's take a look at traffic and weather. So earlier, we had a report of a possible shooting on the outbound Dan Ryan at 29th, had the express lanes closed for a short time while they investigated a shooting. Now we have police activity on Stony Island. So if you're taking the Bishop Ford and getting off at Stony Island, they're reporting that there's police activity on Stony Island, which is causing issues down there. You've got quite a bit of traffic. So it says Bishop Ford west at Stony Island is closed. So basically both directions. So it looks like Stony Island is closed if you're coming from the Bishop Ford. So keep an eye out for that if you get off at that area of the Bishop Ford. But other than that, the Dan Ryan's pretty much going to be a mess the whole way in due to that earlier police activity. Building traffic starting at about Stony Island where the police activity is all the way into downtown. Here in Indiana, things looking pretty good. 80, 94, 65, Skyway Toll Road, everything looking good. 294 looking, usual slowdowns in the construction zones. Other than that, things are looking good. So the major issue right now is Bishop Ford, Dan Ryan, due to two earlier police activities, which is why the National Guard should be there and not at the beam. Take a look at weather. Lena.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 60 degrees with highs of 86 and lows of 61. We'll be having areas of fog this morning. Otherwise, should be sunny with much of the time and very warm, and should be above the historical average warmth expected this week. On tomorrow Tuesday, we'll be having highs of 80 and lows of 58. Should be remaining warm with abundant sunshine. And then Wednesday, we'll be having highs of 75 and lows of 53 with sun through high clouds.
Thank you so much. So we've got another half hour. If there's anything you'd like to chime in about, we've been talking about a few different things today. We talked about, obviously, there was a shooting in Michigan at the church, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Sad story out there. Gunman drove his pickup truck through the front doors, shot multiple people. They don't even know at this point because after the shooting, he started a fire. So they're still processing that scene. He was neutralized by responding officers. We're talking about what's going on with NIPSCO. It was approved by the IURC for NIPSCO to spin off a separate company called GenCo, specifically to negotiate with the data centers that are coming to our area, to negotiate rates for them. What else we've been talking about? We're talking about this is government shutdown eve. So for those of you that celebrate, we are on the verge of yet another government shutdown because we have a two-party system that can't agree on anything, hasn't passed a clean budget in 30 years, hasn't passed a balanced budget since 1969. But hey, they make a lot of promises around election time, and this is the most important election ever.
Since it is the eve, do we leave like a 20 out on the table?
You leave out milk and cookies for Ron Paul is what you do. Grandpa Ron Paul. He'll take your $20. He'll put it in towards the to balance the budget. So, so again, going back to that is that this is nothing new. This is something that we've been dealing with for decades. There's no end in sight. We're $37 trillion in debt. I put it up here on the board a few weeks ago when we hit $37 trillion. There's really just not even a discussion at this point about passing a balanced budget. It's just rhetoric. And again, going back to Mike's earlier call about spending at the city level, the same discussion could be had at the state level or at the federal level. The only difference is I really can't go to a council meeting in Washington, D.C. I can go to my town council meeting and voice my concerns. But after that, there's really how do you redress your grievances on a state or federal level?
You don't.
You can't. But you still vote for them because they promise you, hey, I'm your guy. I'm going to go there. But even this idea of your congressman goes and says, I'm going to bring money back to your area. I'd say don't. We don't have any money. Like, stop. Why don't you guys agree to not bring money back and balance the budget instead? Instead of bringing back money for silly things, why don't you balance the budget and not bring money home?
We get these postcards in the mail, and everyone up here gets them. Everyone gets these postcards from these, these elected officials, whether it's down in Indianapolis or in D.C., and one entire side of the postcard are all the laws that they've passed, as if, hey, now that I'm elected, I have to show you I'm working by passing all of these things. And I would be perfectly fine if they went down to Indianapolis or D.C. and they said, we didn't pass anything.
Here are the things I voted no on.
Yeah,
here are the things I voted no to spending more money on. All you got to do, send me a postcard that says I voted. I voiced my concerns about $35 million rest stops, and you got my vote. But it's funny though, Bob, because nobody ever does that. Everybody always says, "Here's the laws I've passed. Here's the money I've spent." I never get a postcard saying, "Here's the things I tried to stop because this is how much it's costing you." And again, that's an interesting. That's the interesting thing is that the people are complaining about the cost of living going up. The new taxes all of the things, but then
just wait until 27 when all of these municipalities start passing income taxes.
Local income taxes,
Yeah.
because that's part of SB1, right?
It is.
I mean,
It
and explain
is.
that is this is another tax that's going to go into effect, and you're going to say, wait, when did that happen? Why am I paying this new tax? Right?
Well, and I don't I had a good political mentor who always said, if you're explaining, you're losing. And where I need to wrap my head around this local income tax is that the story is, which I laugh as I say this, you're not going to be paying anymore. It will just come out of your paycheck differently, and the money will go someplace
Voodoo
different on
economics.
the back end.
Voodoo
And
economics.
I'd say, oh, okay, well, if that's what it is, okay. But I am in government, and I have a healthy distrust of how exactly is that going to work. And I don't know, but this speaks to every single comment you made today about folks not showing up to meetings, folks not asking questions, but then also having unrealistic expectations of SB1's going to cost Dyer $1 million a year. The only way that you can get around that is to cut personnel, cut the operating budget.
So this is, again, what I would tell you going into this. I mean, going into this next year is go, look, guys, we have to decide. You, not the 5 people that show up for the council meeting. The entire town has to decide. I have to either cut services or I have to pass a tax. You get to decide. And again, it'd be funny if you spent $1 million on postcards to decide how to deal with the $1 million.
Yes.
But that's how government works. So, I mean, and that becomes the question is even what is your obligation in the council to say, hey, this is, we could either just do this at a meeting and just cut people. We can pass a tax on a second reading or whatever you want to do. You could either do that and just people figure it out, or you could have discussions ahead of time and go, here's what's coming. And in this case, what's coming. It's not a surprise. So that becomes the question is how many municipalities are going to go out there and go, hey, if you're not paying attention, there's a lot to digest, but here's the bottom line.
And I think most, if not all, communities will do this simply out of necessity. Now, I think one of the benefits, while I don't have all of the information now, is the income tax currently in Lake County is not distributed evenly.
Right.
And so if rather than having the county collect it and then distribute it how they want to do it, whatever matrix they have is, if the individual municipalities collect it the same, then at least it stays within your community. But again, there are a lot of mechanisms in there that I'm not even. I am, I feel like I'm on top of it in Dyer, and I don't even understand it all. But in 27, you're going to see that.
Well, and it will be interesting to see what communities pass those taxes, which communities have those meetings and say, what do we want to do? But again, I think at the end of the day, that's the approach that I would suggest for my town, and I would suggest for your town or anybody else's. We know this is coming. How are we going to deal with it? You guys get to decide. Do you want a new tax? How do we do this? So why don't we take some calls? We got a couple callers on hold. So good morning, caller. You're on the air.
The last postcard I got from Hal Slager, who's my representative, said that the state of Indiana spends 57% of the state budget on education.
Right.
57%, which is ridiculous. It shouldn't be. It would be generous to be a third. So you know what? I mean, it's things like that that just tick me off when I read stuff like that.
Well, and that becomes an interesting thing because you have the state spending. You obviously, depending on where you live, you have the referendums. You have multiple referendums depending on where you live. You might have 2 or 3 at this point. You've got federal spending in the billions and billions of dollars on the Department of Ed. But here becomes the question. This is what going back to referendum talk years ago. Billions and billions of dollars. The per pupil spending is just out of control. There are places like Chicago where per pupil they could spend $90,000 per pupil. And guess what? The test scores remain the same. It doesn't matter with very little exception, it doesn't matter how much you spend per pupil. It doesn't matter how many AstroTurf stadiums you build and natatoriums you build. It doesn't tick the box. It doesn't move the needle on test scores. So what does that tell us?
Well, it tells you that the system we're using now is not working. If you look at those test scores, they're ridiculous. I mean, they can't read. They can't do basic math. How are we going to stay on top of the rest of the world when we have a workforce that can't read? If you can't read, you can't learn.
It sounds like we need to throw more money at this problem. We should spend more money per pupil. So again, this becomes an interesting question. We can deep dive on all this. You talk about why is it that there's certain groups that do better than others, or certain groups where education's important, and so their entire life, their parents, their grandparents, their older brothers and sisters make sure they do their homework and teach them. There's certain groups that take education seriously, but far too often, most of this country doesn't care about education. But it's not my job to educate my kids. My job is to kick them on the bus and then let school do it, and then not ask them what they're learning. I mean, I love to ask my kids at the dinner, okay, what did we learn this week? And then every once in a while they say something, go, hang on a second, let's talk about this. And so that becomes the problem, is that we've created a system where we, the parent, just think, throw the kid on the bus, it's their problem, and then hopefully they're learning what they need to learn. And then when my kid doesn't know math or whatever, we go, oh, whose fault is that?
People are taxed out,
right.
You know what, and that's why a lot of these referendums are failing. And like my dad used to say, I don't care how thin you slice the bologna, eventually you run out of bologna. And that's what's happening now. People don't want to hear about taxes. I think people don't understand why the governor is doing what he's doing with this new type of taxing thing with the local option income tax. It's because the rate of increases in your property taxes are greatly exceeding inflation, and people retire and can't afford to stay in their own homes that are paid for. And you know what? At the end of the day, once they pass this local income tax, they're going to have more money than they're getting right now. That's the whole idea. When people are working, you could tax them. If they're working, making good money, you could tax them. They'll go along with it. It's when they're not making money that they start to scream, and that's what's happening.
Well, and this goes to my argument. When you look at the two, when you look at the private sector and public sector, if I run multiple businesses, if one of my businesses isn't producing, we don't go, well, we have options, but we get creative, right? We start looking at our bottom line. We start looking at what could we do differently? What can we do to get more customers? What can we do to streamline operations? In government, the solution is, hey, we've got this inefficient system. We need more money. Let's just basically vote ourselves a raise. Let's just tax ourselves more money, and the system just becomes more inefficient. And that's the inherent problem, is that there's really, unless you are a town like Dyer that's looking at, so many communities and the states and federal level, they just look at it as just what do we need? Just generate more debt. Like, what's the problem? How much debt? Just more debt. There's not many communities, even going back to my point of we haven't had a balanced budget in this country since 1969. They just said, we'll just add more debt. What do you want? Let's get the stuff first, and then we'll figure out how to pay for it on the back end. We'll just create new debt. And that becomes that debt spiral of nobody's being held accountable. Nobody's saying, hey, why are we not passing balanced budgets? Why are we just running on CRs and threats of government shutdown every 2 years? But there's just nobody out there that cares, right? I mean, how many people can tell you how much the debt is? How many people are beating the drum about $37 trillion like I do on these airwaves? Not a lot of people. Right? I mean, they just want
Virtually
more stuff.
Nobody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm tired of people from Illinois moving here and demanding all the services that they had over in Illinois and complaining about the high property taxes they were paying there. So they're going to move here, demand that we build all this stuff in today's dollars. They're abandoning facilities that were built years ago, which were much cheaper to construct. But they're going to move here and they're going to tell everybody that's lived here for a long time, well, you're going to pay X amount of dollars more because I want this. Okay, that's why I moved here.
One of my favorite stories was a lady in a comment section one day. She said, I moved to Indiana for the cheaper taxes. I'm moving back to Illinois because there are no more services. And I said, perfect, exactly. That's how it's supposed to work. If you want more services, if you want all this stuff.
Thanks for trying.
Yeah, thanks for. There are people in Chicago, there are people I work with that tell me they hate Indiana because we don't have streetlights. I'm like, yeah, because I don't want you to find my house. They're like, you guys don't have snowplows. I'm like, well, yeah. I said, and like, yeah, what's the point? Like, yes, we get by on less government, and my taxes are 20% of what yours are. You get to decide. Do you live in Indiana? You live in Chicago?
I walk at Central Park every day. It's a beautiful park, and I think Dyer should seriously consider doing what Munster did. I'm seeing more and more Illinois license plates over there every day, and I think you're going to have to do something about that eventually. all their high taxes, build your own park system. Quit using ours.
That's okay. Interesting discussion because again, I was there when you would go in Munster before they had that parking. When I lived there,
couldn't find a spot.
You couldn't find a spot, and there was people having weddings there, taking wedding photos. Like I just want to take my kids to the park, and there's nowhere to park.
Yeah, and we've had that discussion as Central Park grows. We've got some plans there over the next 2 to 5 years to add different amenities to that, and that is a concern. When Munster started that. 2-3 years ago, maybe whenever it was, we said that may be something that we need to do in Dyer because we'll have 2 or 3 parking spots down there, and that's the concern. Is Dyer residents and Dyer businesses, they paid for that park,
right?
And so how can we not utilize that as residents when you drive through and like you said in Munster. All these folks are going over there from out of town, taking pictures, having weddings, doing all these things, which is perfectly fine. It's great. But the residents that paid for it should get some type of priority to be able to use that.
Well, what's wrong with kicking in a few bucks for the maintenance of the place? I mean, you know what? I don't think Munster charges exorbitant rates. I don't know, what is it, by the hour or something, and residents get like 4 or 5 passes a year or something that. It's fair.
They get a handful of passes, and I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, because I passed the sign when I come up this way, I think it's $5 a day max. So it's not again. If you're going to, it's a beautiful park, and if you're going to go there and enjoy that, what's $5?
Well, and again, that should be whether you're going to the park. If I take my kids up to the beach in Whiting, we pay a few dollars an hour to park, and that's fine. I'm paying for the lifeguards. I'm paying for people to maintain the beach. That's the way that I look at a system that's supposed to work, not me subsidizing. And as I say, don't make me subsidize your recreation, right? Yeah. And that's the problem, is that far too often I said, why do the bike trails not have, why don't you have a little iPass on your bicycle and you pay a toll for using the bike trail? Like, why is that such a radical idea when we're spending millions of dollars on bike bridges?
One of the biggest complaints that we get in Dyer with Central Park, and you say that you walk it often, and so I'm sure you've seen this at some point in time, is the Monday and Tuesday after a big tournament, they'll say, look, the north end of Central Park just looks like garbage because they aren't policing themselves and they're just throwing stuff everywhere. So then we've got to come in and
you need resources to clean that mess up.
We do. We send Parks and Public Works to go over there. We pay extra money to have extra garbage cans out there, whether or not they're used. That's and we've started to build in to the fees for folks who rent that, because I'm for me personally, I'm done, like you said, subsidizing other people's behavior of
bad behavior.
Oh, well, I just, I got my 4 Gatorade bottles I'm just going to leave on the bleachers there. And then, go back to Porter County. And it's like, no, I'm not sending, if I got some of my Public Works guys out on a Monday morning to clean up after you guys, we're going to start charging you.
You know what you need? Ed 209 garbage robots. Just one walking around, and when you litter, like pick up that litter, or you're going to jail.
Yep.
I don't think, for the most part, I think most people want to throw the stuff in the garbage can. The cans are just too small to handle the events that they have there.
Yeah.
Either more cans or bigger cans would probably be the obvious thing. But most people, if you look, there's more garbage around the cans than once they're overflowing. But, it's a huge park, and when you have those tournaments, the baseball and the soccer, whatever, the park gets used a lot. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And but you know what? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and like you said, but you know what? It's for Dyer residents. And if you want to use it, then you got to kick in a few bucks.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
Hey, thanks.
Guys.
Okay,
thanks for calling.
Here's my suggestion.
Uh-oh.
You need to dress up the garbage cans like characters. You need to dress them up like Nintendo characters or like Pokemons or what is Hungry Hippos. You got to dress them up like characters, and then the kids will be like, "Man, I want to put garbage in the hippo."
in the hungry
so
hippo?
I want to do a experiment. I think if you did that, your garbage collection would go up 50%.
Okay.
We should try that.
I'm on the air right now. Let's try it. If there's any artists out there that want to paint a handful of garbage cans, and we'll
you have to make like heads. You have to make like a plastic head and put googly eyes on the head, and that will increase your garbage collection rate 50%. It will cut your budget. I will consult for you guys on how to save money.
All right.
That's what you do. Googly eyes on the garbage cans.
When we leave here in 12 minutes, I will make a call and see if we can't get some googly eyes. And we'll
get
we'll
googly
try it.
eyes. We'll buy them on Amazon and buy them. We'll put them on googly eyes. We'll do a blind test.
Sounds
Your
good.
collection rates will go up with googly eyes on the garbage
All
cans.
right.
Again, this is
how
why-
government works.
This is how government works. Government be like, oh, let's spend $50 million on new trash can. No, put googly eyes on them. That's all you got to do. Spend $8 for googly eyes on Amazon, and it will fix your problem. Paint them up like what are the guys from Pac-Man? Dress them up like Pac-Man. Put googly eyes on them. $12 out the door. It will cut your garbage spending in half. I'm Chuck Pullen. Vote for me. We got a few more minutes. We got any calls? Okay. So Bob, we got like 10 minutes left because you got to go.
I gotta go. I got things to do. I am currently on the Amazons.
How much? No, you got to get the big googly eyes.
The 7.5 inch. Do you think that's a good enough size googly eye?
Well, is that
one set is $8?
you guys? Two of them?
Yes.
How
but
many
one
garbage
set.
cans you got out there?
I don't know.
But you got to put the heads on them though. You got to put the top. And you got to paint it red. Why don't? How many Pac-Men are? What's the Pac-Man? The four guys. There's four different guys. Like Pinky is one of them.
Red, yellow, and
there's four of them, I think. So here's what we're gonna do. Look, because I know you guys passed the balanced budget. I don't want to mess that up with this. So you and I maybe you get businesses to donate. So you figure out how much it's going to cost to make.
Just an FYI, my wife is texting me Amazon googly eye things now. So,
but we need to paint them. Yes, hire your wife as a consultant. I'll consult the consultant, and we will see if this works. I swear, your garbage collection rate will go up 50%. Let's take another caller. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning. I believe in the 80s it was Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde.
This is why I put this. I
See,
don't
this
need
is-
AI. I don't need ChatGPT. I got you guys. So there you go. So you build. Am I off base here? Bob says that people aren't using the garbage cans. I swear, if you paint these garbage cans to look like those characters, kids will use them. Kids will go out of their way to pick up garbage to put them in there just to see the googly eyes bounce around.
Let's do it.
And let's do it. Let's just see if it works. I mean, again, this is how, instead of spending millions of dollars on having parks people come by and clean up the park and extra, like just do something cost
So
$8.
what were their names again? We need four of them.
I believe it was Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde.
And Clyde.
And Clyde,
All right.
there you go.
I will see the four largest. Was it like the 96-gallon ones that Republic has? And,
no, well,
I
they gotta
think
have
some of
the
those.
head though. You gotta is that?
Well, they got the lid.
Okay,
we'll have to have somebody make the head.
Okay,
I'm
so you
not
got
that
like
creative.
a helmet, yeah. So again, this is government action. This is we just cut your budget, and now you guys are going to save $1 million.
Well, you may have cut the town's budget, but according to Becca's text messages, my budget just got bombed out.
It's $100.
She's buying googly eyes
Get
now.
somebody to pay for it. Get somebody else to pay for it. Use
I
other
think
people's
Becca
money.
did me.
Well, there you go. Now, these garbage cans sponsored by the committee to reelect Bob Starkey.
Sure, that works.
There you go.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Look at the tournaments that you have, and which ones generate more of the trash. How many of them are from out of state, and how many of them are from local events?
Yeah, and I would say anecdotally, the local folks, tend to take a little more ownership. That may be me just painting with a broad brush, but I don't know.
Well,
you would. I mean, it's your park. You will probably take better care of it than somebody else's park. So.
Yeah.
Well, and let's be honest too. I mean, a lot of us have the chip on the shoulder from the FIPS, so and you kind of wonder if that's where a lot of the events are coming from that generate more trash. But yeah, it is sad to see that and it's a bad example that the adults are setting for their kids, that they don't pick up the trash.
I was at Lake Central was out in Michigan City, and the little girl, I was like in the background, I heard somebody yelling at the little girl, go put it in the trash. The trash is down there. I was going to turn around and just like applaud the parent for telling that kid to take the effort to go throw their garbage away. It's again, like you said, it's an example that you set. And then, when you leave, you pick up some trash and throw it in the garbage can on your way out the door. Again, that's simple things we talk about, letting the government parent for you. Like, those are the little things. Like, if my daughter's dropping trash, like, no, stop what you're doing, pick that up and throw it away. Like, I am one of those people. And you know why I'm like that? Because Libertarians, if you ever drive down 231 on your way to Crown Point, you'll see this section controlled by, cleaned up by libertarians. Guess who the libertarian is that cleans up that section of 231? It's me and my son and whoever else I forced to go out there with me. So I'm going out there cleaning up Gatorade bottles and things like that all day long. And I appreciate, like, people are just nasty people. And every time I see somebody littering, see, there you go. Who is that? That's the Minions. There you go, Bob. Make some Minions. Make some Minion garbage
Minion
cans.
trash cans.
He's showing me all these things. Again, it's not my idea, but it's going to save you money. So, but yeah, I think that's again, when kids are in high school, that should be part of the curriculum. Is you have to go clean up a roadside. So as an adult, you appreciate how silly it is that we waste all this energy picking up Gatorade bottles on the side of the road because somebody's too lazy to go throw it away.
And everyone should have to work some type of fast food or retail service.
Well, it's hard to do that with public sector, but they could work the concession stands at your park. That? So yeah, again, simple things where it's like, hey, we got these kids, they got too much free time, make them go clean some roadsides so they can appreciate like just how silly it is to have to clean up roads because people are nasty people. So,
hey, all right, I want to ask you a question now. Getting back to the NIPSCO situation.
Yeah.
Is there any type of verbiage in the approval for GenCo that states what qualifies a mass consumer? Are hospitals going to be affected? Are NIPSCO is the mill's going to be affected? Or
let's be honest.
What's the limit?
I was walking around my house last night, and every single light in the house was on. I think I'm a mass consumer too. So like, why don't I should get to negotiate those rates, considering all the lights my kids leave on. But no, that's a valid point. Somebody else messaged me the same thing. Like, what does a hospital count? Who counts? And so what is that delineation? Or, I think the mills and BP are obviously the biggest users. The train, by the way, one of the biggest users of electricity. So you get to pay for that. Whether people are riding the train or not, you're paying for all that electricity. So yeah, valid point is that what decides that. But is it just most people, when Jim was on earlier, is basically just saying it's just a way to subsidize the data centers and make us, the consumers, pay more, $77 more a month on average. So that becomes the big question: is is this just another voodoo economics method to subsidize cheap energy for a big data center? I don't know.
Okay, as a business owner, Chuck, I'm going to ask you, when you need to go out and buy new equipment for your business, and I'm not going to specify because I don't know if you want people to know what business you own or whatever, but if you have to go out and buy new equipment for your business, do you pass that on to the consumers, or is that something that you just say, hey, I need new equipment, I have to pay for this?
Right, and so again, we're dealing with that right now. Why? Because our NIPSCO bill has gone up nearly 50% in the last couple of years. And so that's now, when we look at, like you said, when we look at our budget, we say, okay, our NIPSCO bill has gone up. What are we going to do here? And again, my business is one that uses lots of gas and lots of energy. So that becomes a question: is my goal as a business owner is not to nickel and dime my customer. I want to give the best experience. Even right now, we're looking at ways to be more energy efficient. So instead of passing that cost on to my customer and raising my rates, I go, is there a way that we can, we're going to get a new hot water heater or something that's more efficient? Will that help offset those costs? Since I'm not government, since I don't just get to tax my customers, I have to go, hey, is there a way around this to not raise my rates? Is there a way to make what I'm doing more efficient, to use less energy or use my energy more efficiently, to not have to raise rates? Because unlike government, if I raise my rates, there's going to be backlash to it, and I don't get to vote. I don't get to vote that. I have to decide, and it's a difficult decision that we wrestle with. Every business owner wrestles with that every day. Do I want to raise rates, or do I want to find a way to be more efficient? I'm going to probably find it's a combination of both, unfortunately.
I would imagine it would have to be some type of combination, because if you never raise your rates, you wouldn't have the capital to buy a new, more expensive instant water heater that in the long run will probably save you some money.
But there's an initial cost involved. There's
there
an initial
is. And
capital cost involved. So that's a discussion.
So
that
some
we're having.
balance of, but to that point, I don't know your business. I know you to be a fair guy, but also you're probably not doing it as a,
I don't twirl my mustache and go, "Mwah, ha, ha, we get to raise our rates again."
No,
but I also say,
I'm assuming you're probably not doing it just out of the kindness of your heart, and hey, I'm not looking to make anything off of this. I'm just running the service for the good.
Well,
of the
and
community.
honestly,
there has to be something out of it for
every
you.
time one of these articles comes out about utility rates or about a new tax, a food and beverage tax, I want to laminate that article and put it on the wall. So when people come to me and go, "Well, why'd you raise rates?" I just point at the wall. Go read that article, see who's elected officials, whose names are in that article, and they're the direct reason why why I had to increase my costs. So, and I'd love to just have those put on metal plaques and just put them on the wall, say this is where my costs are.
To speak of that, and caller, I don't mean to take over this call, but to your point about laminating those and sticking them on the wall, my suggestion was when these municipalities across the state of Indiana have to pass a local income tax option just to keep folks employed, they need to name that after whichever representative voted for it.
Like the Nancy Pelosi Insider Trading Act.
Yes,
kind of thing,
because otherwise, there is some combination of we'll find ways to reduce costs, but you can't take $1 million out of the budget and there not be consequences.
Okay.
Sorry, that was just my thing. Name it.
Not to interrupt, but kind of going off of that thought, it makes me think back to the Lake County Fair when there was a bunch of persons listed
the
on a
posters
wall.
on the wall. So the Lake County Republicans had a tent where they had a whole bunch of basically posters showing everybody that was indicted. I think he said about 40 people. Of the 75, he had to choose 40 of them to put them on the wall just to show you that elections have consequences. And I always ask people, how many people that have you voted for have gone to jail? And at what point do you go, well, maybe I'm the problem if I continue to vote for people that go to jail?
Well, here's my question. Does that mean that we should go ahead and take and put posters on a page on Facebook or something that show all the people that voted for SB1 that's actually going to screw up this whole tax situation?
I think you really need to. I mean, I was kind of thinking about it. You basically have to have a truth and consequences kind of thing where it's okay, it started here. I mean, this can go back to the gas tax. You can pick any point in time. We argued about the gas tax here. I said, well, what's that? If we're going to have the highest gas taxes, are we going to have the best roads? No, we're going to have Taj Mahal rest stops and things like that. So that becomes the question is at any point in time, you can look at it and go, hey, these are the guys that voted for this thing that led to this other thing that led to this other thing. It's a never ending cycle. And this is where, and again, that sort of thing is people are on the back end going, well, why is everything so expensive? It's well, because they've been nickel and diming you on an option income tax, on a wheel tax, on a food and beverage tax, on a this tax. And they've just been nickel and diming you, and it adds up. And the average person just kind of gets to that point. I think we're hopefully there now where they go, this is not sustainable. But then the question is, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to vote harder? Are you going to go to these meetings, these town hall meetings, and go, hey, look, you guys have gone too far. I don't know what do we do about it. That's the question.
Because you got guys like Bob there that every local elected official is basically going to have that mark on them for having to come up with all these different fees and taxes and everything else to compensate for what the people downstate did as far as the supposed tax credit and wiping out the homestead exemption.
Well, and that's the part that's not fair is that somebody is eventually going to get in Bob's face and go, why are we adding this tax? It's well, because I pass a balanced budget. They took money away from me. I need to add that money back in. So there are people that are going to hold it against Bob that somebody else played voodoo economics with taxes.
And for any of the downstate politicians, I challenge you to come on this show, sit down here and explain yourself in that. To understand government financing, when you take away that money, government money is in silos. Certain money can be used for some things, certain money can't be used for other things, and the money that you're taking away is from the general fund, and something like 80 to 90% of our public safety comes from the general fund. So there's only one place that SB1 is cutting from, and I challenge anybody up to, 206 of the State House of Government, come on here. There's only one place that it's going to come from, that's public safety. So police and fire.
Can I explain the genius of this, though? I've explained this before, and then we got to go. The genius is you take money away from, like you said, public safety. You take money away from education, and you put it in other things that you want. So you take the money out of there, and you go, guys, our roads, we took half the money away from the roads, and now we need road money. We need money for the children. We need money for the first responders. So it's not that those funds were being underfunded. It's that you stole from them, and then to replenish them, you go, guys, think of the children. Think of the first responders. Think of little Spot the Dalmatian on the fire truck. How could we not give them the money they need? It's like, well, you're the one who stole it in the first place, and now you're trying to emotionally you're gaslighting the voters by going, hey, look, I don't know where the money went. It just kind of went away. We need more now. But you can't say no to the children. You can't say no to the first responders. And that's how the system has been working. And far too often, everybody falls for it. And how dare someone like me ask questions and go, hey, real quick, how'd we get here? It's like, how dare you? Think of the children. And that's how we end up in this cycle. So, caller, appreciate it. We got to go.
Thanks for calling in.
Good day, sir.
But yeah,
Gentlemen.
again, that's the cycle we've created. We're just going to we're taking a nickel here, we're taking a penny there, and then, well, hey, where'd a third of the gas taxes go? We don't know. We're just, went to services. Yeah. Well, now we don't have enough money. Okay, well, now we need to raise the gas taxes. That's how it goes. And,
save some steam for next week.
Yeah,
Chuck.
all I can do is come on these airwaves and try to educate people, try to explain how we got here, because far too often people come to me and say, how did we get here? I go, well, I could tell you, not that, what are you going to do about it? Well, you don't care. Show up at your town council meeting. That's my advice. It's Chuck Pullen, Bob Starkey, the fall with Chuck 2, the Electric Boogaloo. Bob, you're not back next week.
I am gone for the next 2 weeks.
So we're going to have just a big surprise guest. It's going to be just we're going to have a great time next week without you, Bob. It's going to be a great show. Leeneth is going to be my co-host. She's going to sit in with me, and then we're going to have Matt will push the buttons. How about that? But we're going to have a big surprise next week. We'll talk all about that next week. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week.